Chapter 1283. Dao Sanxing was not joking. She was really going to take Yi Xian to the Sumeru kingdom. Yi Xian panicked. He was afraid of being beaten up by the group. In front of the Dao world's cosmic barrier, Yi Xian pointed at it. This is very sturdy. Dao Sanxing glanced at the cosmic barrier before throwing a punch at it. Boom. Under Yi Xian's shocked gaze, she punched a hole in the cosmic barrier. Dao Sanxing looked at Yi Xian. It's not very sturdy either. Yi Xian was speechless. Dao Sanxing led Yi Xian into the space tunnel. Yi Xian took a look at Dao Sanxing. He was shocked. He was confident that he could open the cosmic barrier, but he was not confident that he could do it so easily. However, this fellow had broken it with one punch. This fellow was likely to be at the Dao validation realm. Dao Sanxing suddenly asked, "Do we really have more than 1,000,000 people?" Yi Xian collected his thoughts and nodded. "Yes. All the experts in the fifth dimension are under my command." Then he looked at Dao Sanxing. "Lady Sanxing, is the underworld really weak?" Dao Sanxing blinked. "It should be very weak." Yi Xian smiled bitterly. "Sanxing, you should know that if we underestimate the enemy's strength, it will bring disaster to us." Dao Sanxing fell silent. Yi Xian thought about it and said, "Even if the underworld is weak, we should still take our opponents seriously. What do you think?" Seeing that Yi Xian had given him a way out, Dao Sanxing hurried to follow his lead. He nodded and said, "Yes, we must take our opponents seriously. We must. The underworld is not that weak." Yi Xian suddenly asked casually, "Lady Sanxing, is the three-birth art very powerful?" "Yes." Dao Sanxing was about to answer, but she quickly stopped and looked at Yi Xian. "Don't tell me you want to cultivate the three-birth art?" Yi Xian smiled. "I'm just asking." Dao Sanxing did not speak. Yi Xian asked again, "Can I cultivate it?" Dao Sanxing shook her head. "Not yet." Yi Xian was puzzled. "Why?" Dao Sanxing said, "You must be at least at the Dao validation realm to cultivate it." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Why do I need to be in the doctrine level to cultivate?" "Because it involves the past, present, and future lives. It is very complicated. You can't learn it without reaching the Dao validation realm." Yi Xian still wanted to ask something, but the two of them had already left the space tunnel. As soon as the two of them left, a middle-aged man appeared in front of them. Upon seeing Yi Xian, the middle-aged man's expression changed drastically. "Yi Xian, right now the godly kingdom of Sumeru was still very afraid of Yi Xian. No, it should be said that they were afraid of Moon Yin." Yi Xian remained silent. Dao Sanxing interjected, "Go tell that godly kingdom of godly Mt Shumi's heavenly lord to come see me. Tell him to hurry. I am very busy." Yi Xian was speechless. The middle-aged man looked at Dao Sanxing. "Who is it?" Dao Sanxing was about to speak when Yi Xian said, "She is the fifth universe's military advisor. She represents the fifth universe. Tell the god of the Shumi kingdom to come out and see her." Dao Sanxing nodded. "I am the fifth universe's military advisor." The fifth universe's military advisor. The middle-aged man frowned. He looked at Dao Sanxing and left. Dao Sanxing glanced at the surroundings and said, "The energy here is very pure." Yi Xian nodded. The Ling Qi here was much purer than in the fifth universe. Dao Sanxing suddenly said, "I think we can build our base here." Yi Xian glanced at Dao Sanxing. "I'm afraid they won't agree." Dao Sanxing patted his chest. "Watch me." Yi Xian was speechless. Right at this moment, the space around the two of them suddenly trembled. Very quickly, many powerful auras appeared around them. Yi Xian looked into the distance. A middle-aged man appeared out of thin air. It was the god of the Shumi kingdom. The god of the Shumi kingdom looked at Yi Xian. "Where is Miss Mu?" Yi Xian smiled. "She did not come." The god narrowed his eyes. "So she came alone?" Dao Sanxing said suddenly. "Is she ignoring me?" The god looked at Dao Sanxing. "Who is it?" Yi Xian quickly introduced. "She is the fifth universe's military advisor." "Military advisor?" The god frowned. "What the hell?" Yi Xian was speechless. Dao Sanxing sneered. He punched out. Punch. Boom. A destructive force swept through the battlefield. Almost in an instant, the world within a radius of several tens of thousands of miles shattered into nothingness. As for the Divine Master, he immediately retreated several tens of thousands of feet away. As soon as he stopped, the physical body he had just cultivated shattered, and only his soul was left. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned when they witnessed this scene. Yi Xian wasn't surprised because he was mentally prepared. In the distance, the Divine Lord stared at Dao Sanxing in a daze. At this moment he was quite stunned. This woman shattered my body with a single strike. Where did this terrifying figure come from? Dao Sanxing glanced at the god. I allow you to surrender. Surrender. The divine master was stunned, and then he said in a low voice, Who is it? Dao Sanxing spoke coldly. Didn't he say it just now? I'm the fifth universe's military advisor. I have 1,000,000 soldiers behind me. Understand? Yi Xian was speechless. The god stared at Dao Sanxing. She's a Dao confirming realm expert. Dao Sanxing remained expressionless. I'll ask you one last time. Do you want to surrender or not? The god's expression became ferocious. Just one person? Dao Sanxing slowly clenched his right hand. At this moment, a pillar of light that was thousands of meters long suddenly appeared in the distant horizon. Within the pillar of light, an illusory giant blade appeared. In the next moment, the giant blade tore through the sky and slashed towards Dao Sanxing. Dao Sanxing didn't dodge, nor did she attack. She just allowed the enormous blade to slash her. Bang! The giant blade shattered with a loud bang, but Dao Sanxing remained unscathed. The expressions of the experts from the Shumi kingdom changed when they witnessed this scene. Dao Sanxing suddenly vanished on the spot. The god's expression changed drastically. He wanted to retreat, but it was too late. A hand was wrapped around his throat. It was Dao Sanxing's hand. Dao Sanxing gazed at the god's master. I'll give you one last chance. Do you want to surrender or not? Yi Xian was speechless. The god's master glared at Dao Sanxing. The Shumi kingdom will never surrender. As soon as he finished speaking, a powerful aura erupted from his soul. Soon his soul turned blood red. Ancestral blood. A trace of surprise flashed across Yi Xian's eyes. This guy's bloodline has merged with his soul. Dao Sanxing furrowed his brows. She clenched her right fist. Bang! That god master's soul exploded, but his blood escaped. Dao Sanxing grabbed at the air and a ball of blood appeared in her hand. It was burning, but Dao Sanxing was completely fine. Dao Sanxing turned to Yi Xian as if she had thought of something. Do you want to absorb it? Yi Xian blinked. Can I? Dao Sanxing nodded. The power of his bloodline is very special. You can absorb it. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and then said, Is my bloodline power more powerful or his? Dao Sanxing blinked. How can his rubbish bloodline compare to yours? Yi Xian was speechless. Dao Sanxing sized up Yi Xian. Your bloodline is the most powerful bloodline I have ever seen. Moreover, it is constantly getting stronger. By the way, is our ancestor still alive? Yi Xian shook his head. I don't know either. Dao Sanxing thought for a while and said, We can look for him. Then we can ask our ancestor to follow us to attack the underworld. I think our ancestor might be more powerful than that fish-eating woman. Yi Xian blinked. How powerful is that fish-eating woman? Dao Sanxing shook her head. I don't know. Anyway, she's very powerful. I can't beat her. Remember, bring her along when we attack the underworld. She can follow the master of the underworld. Yi Xian looked at Dao Sanxing. Can't I? Dao Sanxing blinked and waved her hand. That trash is not worthy of my attention. Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, a white-haired old man suddenly appeared in front of Dao Sanxing. The white-haired old man looked at Dao Sanxing. How should I address you, miss? Dao Sanxing looked at the white-haired old man. The godly kingdom of Shumi, are you surrendering or not? The white-haired old man looked at Dao Sanxing and shook his head. The godly kingdom of Shumi has never surrendered. With that, he turned and said softly, Go out. As his voice fell, in the distant godly kingdom of godly MT Shumi's main city, 4 blood-colored pillars of light shot up to the sky. In an instant, the entire sky was dyed crimson, and within the 4 pillars of light, 4 blood-colored long swords gradually materialized. At this moment, Yi Xian's expression turned solemn, because he sensed danger. What kind of formation was this? The white-haired old man looked at Dao Sanxing. Miss, this is the great formation of gods. If you retreat now, it is not too late. He did not want to fight this woman head-on. Dao Sanxing looked at the 4 blood-red long swords and punched out. Bang! Everyone watched as the 4 blood-red swords exploded into pieces and transformed into nothingness. Yi Xian was speechless. The white-haired old man and the others were stunned as well. They're gone just like that? Dao Sanxing gazed at the white-haired old man. This thing doesn't seem to work. The white-haired old man took a deep glance at Dao Sanxing and said, Invite the ancestor. As soon as he finished speaking. Bang! An extremely powerful aura suddenly appeared in the depths of the starry sky, and then the world around it instantly became illusory. Moreover, the blood of many experts from the godly kingdom of Shumi actually started to tremble. Was fear. The ancestors' blood had descended. Dao Sanxing frowned slightly as he gazed at the powerful aura. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Why can all these powers summon their ancestor? Can I summon my ancestor as well? Should I give it a try? Chapter 1284. Ancestral Summon. He'd had this thought for a very long time. But he knew that it wasn't reliable. Because he didn't even know who his ancestor was. Actually, he was very curious. Who was his ancestor? His bloodline was quite formidable, so logically speaking, his ancestor should be very formidable as well. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled, and he stopped thinking about it. He looked towards the distant sky. At this moment, his bloodline was gradually trembling, but it wasn't being suppressed by the ancestral bloodline. The bloodline wasn't able to affect him at all, but it couldn't be underestimated. Yi Xian gazed at Dao Sanxing. Dao Sanxing looked up into the sky and spoke softly, "It looks very formidable." Yi Xian was speechless. Right at this moment, a middle-aged man suddenly walked over from the sky. He wore a dark robe that had a golden dragon embroidered on it, and he possessed an extraordinary imposing aura. The first divine master of the godly kingdom of Shumi. All the experts of the godly kingdom of Shumi knelt down in unison when they saw him, and some members of the imperial family even knelt on the ground. It was bloodline suppression. They were helpless against the ancestral bloodline, and it was the ancestral bloodline of their own clan. It could be said that their success was due to their bloodline, and their downfall was due to their bloodline. Because their ancestors were too strong, and their descendants were practically unable to surpass this bloodline. To a certain extent, this bloodline had become a shackle to them. The middle-aged man waved his right hand lightly in midair, and then the bloodline aura within him instantly vanished without a trace. The experts of the godly kingdom of Shumi instantly felt much more at ease. The middle-aged man's eyes narrowed slightly as he gazed at Dao Sanxing. Dao Shi. Dao Shi. Yi Xian's face fell. This fellow actually recognized Dao Sanxing. Dao Sanxing was slightly surprised as he gazed at the middle-aged man. "You recognize me?" The middle-aged man replied, "I've been to the nether dimension. According to my knowledge, you escaped from there." Dao Sanxing's eyes narrowed slightly. "You're the one who escaped." "I fought my way out. I fought my way out." As soon as she finished speaking, she smashed her fist forward. Bang! A powerful force swept through the surroundings. The middle-aged man smashed his fist forward as well, and a blood-red fist flashed out from his fist. Boom! The space in front of the middle-aged man and Dao Sanxing exploded and turned into nothingness. But soon the space returned to normal. The middle-aged man was still there. He had only retreated a few hundred feet, but he had taken on Dao Sanxing's punch. The Dao Proving Realm. Yi Xian took a look at the man in the middle. This man was definitely at the Dao Validation Realm, and he was definitely one without any flaws. Otherwise, he would not have been able to take a punch from Dao Sanxing with just a wisp of his soul. It seemed that he still could not underestimate these ancient powers. Just as Dao Sanxing was about to attack again, the middle-aged man suddenly laughed and said, "If you attack again, I will inform the underworld that you are here." Dao Sanxing frowned. "Are you threatening me?" The middle-aged man smiled. "No, I'm afraid of you. This wisp of my soul can't defeat you, but if you continue to attack, aren't you afraid of attracting the experts of the netherworld?" Dao Sanxing fell silent. The netherworld. Yi Xian glanced at Dao Sanxing. He could tell that the little girl was afraid of the underworld. If she was afraid of the netherworld even though she possessed terrifying strength, then he could imagine how terrifying it was. Meanwhile, the middle-aged man spoke again. "We have no intention of becoming enemies with you, and we don't want to offend the netherworld as well." Dao Sanxing spoke indifferently. "I want to attack the netherworld." The middle-aged man's eyelids twitched. He hesitated for a moment and said, "You want to attack the netherworld?" Dao Sanxing spoke coldly. "Can't I?" The middle-aged man asked, "By yourself?" Dao Sanxing pointed at Yi Xian. "And him?" Yi Xian was speechless. The middle-aged man glanced at Yi Xian, and a trace of surprise flashed through his eyes. "The cause of disaster." Yi Xian glanced at the middle-aged man and remained silent. The middle-aged man stared at Yi Xian. "You're not simple at all." Yi Xian smiled. "Are you trying to ask why I'm still alive?" The middle-aged man looked deeply at Yi Xian, then turned to the white-haired old man beside him. "Do the godly kingdom of Shumi have any enmity with the two of them?" The white-haired old man hesitated for a moment, then told him about Yi Xian's Dao scripture. A moment later, the middle-aged man looked at Yi Xian with a trace of surprise in his eyes. You have the Tao scripture. Yi Xian shook his head quickly. I did in the past, but I don't now. The realm of bliss has taken it away. The white-haired old man glanced at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, no one here is stupid. Why do you have to play games? Yi Xian said indifferently, believe it or not, it's up to you. In any case, he would never admit to this matter even if he was beaten to death. Once he admitted it, the Tao world would lean towards the godly kingdom of Shumi and the realm of bliss. At this time, Dao Sanxing suddenly walked to Yi Xian and said softly, what should we do? Yi Xian said in a low voice, can you defeat him? Dao Sanxing nodded, I can. But Yi Xian said, are you afraid that he will call the experts from the underworld? Dao Sanxing nodded, we are in the dark and the underworld is out in the open. If the underworld knows that I am here. Of course I'm not afraid of them, but I feel that if we fight the underworld now, we will be surrounded by enemies. Yi Xian quickly nodded, yes. So, I think we can retreat strategically. What do you think? Retreat strategically. Dao Sanxing blinked, I think it's possible. Let's go. Then she pulled Yi Xian away. Yi Xian suddenly said, don't be in such a hurry. Dao Sanxing looked at Yi Xian, and Yi Xian said with a smile, we can't come here for nothing, right? Dao Sanxing blinked, you mean we should take something with us? Yi Xian leaned over to Dao Sanxing's ear, if we are going to attack the underworld in the future, we will need a lot of resources. Then he looked in the direction of the godly kingdom of Shumi. The godly kingdom of Shumi is very rich. We can take some resources with us to strengthen our overall strength. Dao Sanxing blinked and said, that's very thoughtful. Then she turned to the white-haired old man and the middle-aged man, take out all the valuables of the godly kingdom of Shumi. Everyone was stunned. What was she trying to do? Was she trying to rob them? The white-haired old man stared at Dao Sanxing, are you a bandit? Dao Sanxing was taken aback, then looked at Yi Xian, isn't it inappropriate for us to rob others? Yi Xian said seriously, who said we are robbing? We are borrowing. Dao Sanxing quickly nodded, yes. Borrowing. Then she looked at the white-haired old man, borrowing. We are borrowing. Not robbing. The white-haired old man nearly vomited blood in anger, no. Dao Sanxing looked at Yi Xian, and Yi Xian looked at the middle-aged man, since you are not borrowing then we will fight. Dao Sanxing did not waste any time, her hands suddenly clenched into fists, and in an instant the world around them turned illusory. Seeing this, Yi Xian's eyelids twitched, these three forces again. These three forces were enough to destroy the heaven and earth, even he was wary of them. It could be said that these three forces were more powerful than his Tao scripture martial skill. The middle-aged man's eyes turned solemn. These three forces were enough to destroy the godly kingdom of Shumi's origin source. On the other hand, even if he could block these three forces, this wisp of his soul would disappear. This woman's strength was much stronger than he had imagined. Seeing that Dao Sanxing was about to attack, the middle-aged man suddenly said, borrow. The white-haired old man looked at the middle-aged man with an ugly expression. He knew that his ancestor would not be able to stop this woman. Hearing the middle-aged man's words, Dao Sanxing stopped, but just as she was about to speak, Yi Xian said, let's go get them. With that said, he and Dao Sanxing disappeared from the spot. The two of them bolted towards the godly kingdom of Shumi's imperial palace. Along the way no one dared to stop them. The middle-aged man did not stop them either. Most importantly, he couldn't. Just like that, Yi Xian and Dao Sanxing plundered the godly kingdom of Shumi in a frenzy. The two of them took whatever they could see. Other than that, they forced the godly kingdom of Shumi's experts to hand over their spatial rings. At first, some resisted, but after witnessing Dao Sanxing's terrifying strength, no one dared to resist. In order to borrow the good stuff, Yi Xian called Xiaolinger out as well. Xiaolinger could sense some of the good stuff. At first, Xiaolinger was a little reluctant, but soon she became more enthusiastic than Yi Xian and Dao Sanxing. This search lasted for a full 2 hours. They found more than 300 spatial rings, all of which were borrowed from the experts. Other than that, there were also some that were looted from the godly kingdom of Shumi's imperial palace's treasury. It had to be said that Yi Xian had seen great storms and waves, but when he saw the treasures of the godly kingdom of Shumi, he couldn't keep his cool. This was too terrifying. With these treasures and resources, the fifth dimension could nurture countless super experts. Especially the middle-level experts, the fifth dimension would undergo earth-shattering changes. The experts of the godly kingdom of Shumi felt extremely sullen at this moment. They could only watch as Yi Xian, Dao Sanxing and Xiaolinger looted the godly kingdom of Shumi without the slightest scruple. No one dared to make a move because the middle-aged man did not. Within 2 hours, the godly kingdom of Shumi's imperial palace and the imperial palace were all plundered clean. Anything that was slightly valuable was taken away. Yi Xian brought Dao Sanxing and Xiao Linger to the middle-aged man and the white-haired old man. The white-haired old man and the others stared fixedly at Yi Xian and Dao Sanxing. Their gazes were as sharp as knives, capable of killing. Yi Xian said with a straight face, "Everyone, I Yi Xian value honor above all else. Today I borrowed these things from the godly kingdom of Shumi, and I will return them. Really, you can rest assured." With that said, he turned around and disappeared into the horizon with Dao Sanxing. At the end of the horizon, Dao Sanxing pulled Yi Xian's arm. "Are you really going to return them?" Yi Xian said with a straight face, "We are not bandits. Of course we have to return what we borrowed." Dao Sanxing asked, "Then when will you return them?" Yi Xian blinked. "In my next life." Dao Sanxing. "P.S. Can I borrow some monthly tickets? I will return them." "Really?" Chapter 1285. In the next life. Dao Sanxing looked at Yi Xian and winked. "You're so cunning." Yi Xian laughed and disappeared into the horizon with Dao Sanxing. Although he did not destroy the godly kingdom of Shumi this time, he was satisfied. The wealth he took from the godly kingdom of Shumi was enough to change the entire 5 dimensions. The two of them left quickly and disappeared into the horizon in the blink of an eye. The godly kingdom of Shumi. The experts of the godly kingdom of Shumi had ugly expressions on their faces as if they had eaten 10 caddies of dung. Humiliation. When had the godly kingdom of Shumi suffered such humiliation? It could be said that the godly kingdom of Shumi had never suffered such humiliation since its founding. In fact, when Yi Xian and Dao Sanxing left, the experts of the godly kingdom of Shumi wanted to chase after them, but they were stopped by the middle-aged man. Everyone looked at their ancestor. The middle-aged man said softly, "Do you want to die?" The white-haired old man said in a low voice, "Ancestor." The middle-aged man looked at the horizon in the distance. His eyes were solemn. "That woman is not an ordinary person. If you chase after her, you will die in vain." The white-haired old man's face was gloomy. "Ancestor, can we contact the underworld?" He could see that the woman was afraid of the underworld. The middle-aged man looked at the white-haired old man. "If my main body was here, we might be able to contact it, but now, you do not have the ability to contact the underworld. That place is not a place you can set foot in. Let alone you, even Dao Vindication experts do not dare to set foot in there." The white-haired old man's face darkened. "If we cannot contact the underworld, that woman was powerful enough to make people despair. Moreover, there was another woman behind Yi Xian, the 5th dimension Tendo. That woman's terror was no less than the woman just now." The middle-aged man suddenly said, "Are you willing to give up on the Tao scripture?" The white-haired old man was taken aback, then he smiled bitterly. "Ancestor." The middle-aged man was silent for a long time, then he said softly, "I can understand. After all, even I will not give up." Then he looked at the horizon in a daze. Tao scripture. The white-haired old man looked at the middle-aged man without saying a word. After a long time, the middle-aged man suddenly spoke in a low voice. The white-haired old man suddenly raised his head when he heard this, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. In next to no time, the disbelief in his eyes turned into wild joy. After leaving the godly kingdom of Shumi, Yi Xian and Dao Sanxing returned to the 5th dimension. Along the way, although Dao Sanxing had obtained a lot of wealth, she was still a little unhappy, as her perfect plan had been disrupted. Yi Xian looked at Dao Sanxing and said with a smile, "Sanxing, don't be discouraged. There are bound to be some bumps on the road to greatness, but these are just trivial matters. What do you think?" Dao Sanxing remained silent. Yi Xian continued, "You are our 5th dimension's military advisor. Your words and actions can decide the life and death of millions of people. Therefore you cannot be discouraged." Dao Sanxing shook his head. "I'm not discouraged." As she spoke, she looked at Yi Xian. "In your opinion, what should we do next?" Yi Xian said solemnly, "I think that we should first strengthen our strength and prepare for the future." Dao Zuxing clenched his fists. "You're right. Previously, when I took a look, the overall strength of our 5th dimension is a bit weak. I feel that we need to increase the overall strength of our 5th dimension." Yi Xian quickly replied, "Yes." As he spoke, the corners of his mouth lifted slightly. "Now that we have these resources, we can greatly increase the overall strength of our people." Dao Sanxing looked at Yi Xian and said, "You also need to improve your strength." Yi Xian was silent. In fact, his current strength had already reached a bottleneck. To put it bluntly, among all the people Huang Xiaolong had encountered so far, only this Dao Sanxing couldn't win against that Moon Yin Yin. Others, even if it was that godly Xumi ancestor, Huang Xiaolong had the strength to fight. Not only was he at the true escape, but his sword Dao had also reached the realm of sword transformation. At present, in terms of the way of the sword, apart from Moon Yin Yin, his attainment in the way of the sword was definitely the highest. However, he still didn't want to reveal his strength too early. Currently, whether it was the godly kingdom of Xumi or the realm of Western Paradise, their estimation of his strength was still the same as before. That was his advantage. As Moon Yin Yin had said, if one didn't have invincible strength, it was best to know how to hide one's strength. At this time, Dao Sanxing suddenly said, "When you reach the Dao validation realm, I will teach you the art of 3 lives and let you possess the power of 3 lives." Yi Xian looked at Dao Sanxing. "The power of 3 lives?" Dao Sanxing nodded. "The power of 3 lives is the strongest power in the world." Yi Xian hesitated and then asked, "Then do you know about the Dao scripture?" Dao scripture. Dao Sanxing looked at Yi Xian. "Are you talking about the mysterious book in the world of the living?" Yi Xian nodded. Dao Sanxing waved his hand. "That is trash." Yi Xian. Dao Sanxing looked at Yi Xian and said solemnly, "The art of 3 lives is the strongest." Yi Xian nodded. Yes. But do I have to reach the Dao validation realm to cultivate it?" Dao Sanxing nodded. "I'm doing this for your own good. If you cultivate it now, your body won't be able to withstand the power of 3 lives. Moreover, there is a kind of power in your body that you haven't fully absorbed." Yi Xian opened his palm and a ball of golden light appeared in his hand. "Is this it?" Dao Sanxing nodded. "Yes." Yi Xian fell silent. The power of Buddhism. Dao Sanxing was referring to the power of Buddhism in his body. In fact, he also knew that there was something wrong with the power of Buddhism. Although he had reached the level of spiritual insight, he had never seriously cultivated the power of Buddhism. Therefore, the power of Buddhism in his body was a little messy. Dao Sanxing added, "And your blood, the power of your bloodline is also very strong. You have to learn to control it." Yi Xian smiled bitterly. He really couldn't control the power of his bloodline. As the two conversed, they returned to the Alliance Hall. Yi Xian called Guanyin over and had Guanyin bring Dao Sanxing to inspect the experts of the 5th dimension. Dao Sanxing was very interested in the army of the 5th dimension. Yi Xian also specially told Guanyin not to be careless with this military advisor Dao Sanxing. He had to make her feel respect. He also discovered that although this little girl was strong, she was actually quite simple-minded. She needed to be coaxed. As soon as Yi Xian returned to his room, Yi Jiming appeared in front of him. Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. "How was it?" Yi Xian smiled and told him what happened in the godly kingdom of Xumi. Yi Jiming frowned. "That person knows about the underworld." Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming. "Many people know about the underworld." Yi Jiming shook his head. "Not only does that person know about the underworld, she also knows about Dao Sanxing. This means that she has been to the underworld before. And not everyone can go to the underworld. Dao Sanxing escaped and the people of the underworld might not expect her to escape to the world of the living. But if they know that Dao Sanxing is in the world of the living..." Yi Xian said solemnly, "Miss Yi, we can't go to the underworld easily, but the people of the underworld can't come here easily either, right?" Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. "You're right, but that was in the past." "In the past." Yi Xian frowned. "You mean they can come here now?" Yi Jiming said solemnly, "Do you know what separates the underworld from the living?" "The cosmic barrier?" Yi Xian said. Yi Jiming shook his head. "What's more terrifying than the cosmic barrier is the Dao world." Yi Xian frowned. "Dao world?" Yi Jiming nodded. "It's a boundary formed by the great Dao and it's extremely terrifying. It can be said that there was a period of time when the people of the living couldn't go to the underworld and the people of the underworld couldn't go to the world of the living either. But it's different now." Yi Xian was confused. "What?" Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. "Because many great Daos are collapsing. For example, this good and evil reincarnation Dao. I told you before that this Dao has collapsed. Good people might not be rewarded and evil people might not be punished. I don't understand this good and evil reincarnation Dao, and some Daos have been reversed. This Dao world has been reversed and its power is not as great as before." Yi Xian asked curiously, "Who?" Yi Jiming smiled. "I don't know about that. I only know that many great Daos have collapsed. Also, those who can threaten your life now are those who can reverse the great Daos. You can't fight them now." She paused and continued, "I'm guessing that Moon Yin Yin might not be able to reverse the great Daos. Of course it's just my guess. That woman is too sinister and unfathomable. Yi Xian smiled. Miss Yi Jiming is a good person. Yi Jiming said indifferently, that's for you. Yi Xian nodded. In any case, I think she's a good person. Yi Jiming didn't want to continue this topic. After the great Dao laws in the Dao world have been reversed, it's not impossible for the people of the underworld to come to the world of the living. Of course, the people of the living can also go to the underworld. However, ordinary people definitely can't. That's because if the people of the living step into the underworld, their bodies will rot. Only Dao validation experts can resist that kind of corrosive power. And after entering the netherworld, that place is incomparably dangerous. The experts in the netherworld are much stronger than you can imagine. Yi Xian said softly, no wonder Big Sister Nian said that she's unwilling to offend the underworld. He seemed to have thought of something as he spoke, and then he took out the soul-suppressing sword. He gazed at Yi Jiming and said excitedly, Miss Yi, if I take this sword to the river of forgetfulness, do you think I'll be able to absorb all the wandering souls and evil ghosts there? Let me tell you, this sword of mine is extremely powerful. Yi Jiming glanced at the sword and said, yes. Yi Xian was overjoyed when he heard this, and he asked excitedly, really? Yi Jiming said, yes, everything can happen in a dream. Yi Xian was speechless. Chapter 1286. The Netherworld. Yi Xian's heart sank. From Yi Jiming's words, Huang Xiaolong understood that the netherworld had the ability to come to the world of the living. Yi Jiming suddenly interjected, your best option now is to let her go. Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming. Yi Jiming softly said, leaving her here will bring endless trouble. Yi Xian smiled, Miss Yi, what about you? Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian, what about me? Yi Xian smiled faintly, Sansheng's troubles came from the netherworld, where are your troubles coming from? Yi Jiming fell silent. Yi Xian said with a smile, are you in less trouble than her? Yi Jiming shook his head. Yi Xian shook his head, Miss Yi, I'm more curious about your identity and background. Yi Jiming's voice was indifferent, if you really want to know, I can tell you. Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming, Whirling World? Or the Milky Way world? Yi Jiming shook his head, neither. Yi Xian frowned, neither? Yi Jiming nodded. Yi Xian was about to speak when Guanyin walked in. Stopping in front of Yi Xian, she opened her palm, give it to me. Yi Xian was puzzled, what? Guanyin glared at Yi Xian, Sansheng said that you've borrowed a lot of treasures from the godly kingdom of Shumi. Yi Xian smiled and passed all the spatial rings to Guanyin. There were more than 500 of them. When Guanyin saw the treasures in the spatial rings, she sucked in a breath of cold air. She looked at Yi Xian, you've borrowed all the treasures from the godly kingdom of Shumi? Yi Xian smiled sheepishly and was about to speak when Guanyin interjected, do you know how important these things are to us? Yi Xian nodded. In fact, the fifth dimension faced a huge problem, and that was the lack of cultivation resources. This was because the resources of the spirits of 9 dead and the other races had already been squeezed dry. It could be said that the cultivation progress of many experts had slowed down. However, things were different now. With these cultivation resources, the strength of countless experts in the fifth dimension would experience a qualitative breakthrough. These cultivation resources were a lifesaver. Guanyin took a deep breath, put the spatial rings away and said, we need time now. Yi Xian was silent. Coincidentally, what they lacked the most right now was time. Can you give me 2 years? Guanyin asked solemnly. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. I'm afraid not. Guanyin fell silent. Yi Xian said softly, do your best. Just do your best. Guanyin nodded and turned to leave. She would be very busy in the coming days. Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming. You don't have 2 years. Yi Xian nodded. I know. Yi Jiming said, your current strength has reached a bottleneck. If you want to break through again, it will be impossible in a short period of time. However, you can increase your strength elsewhere. Yi Xian was curious. Elsewhere? Yi Jiming said, to get the indestructible Buddha body from the realm of ultimate bliss. Yi Xian frowned. Indestructible Buddha body? Yi Jiming nodded. That body cultivation technique can be said to be second only to the Tao scripture body refinement technique and the Yin world's myriad Yin body. Yi Xian hurriedly asked, Tao scripture body refinement technique. Yi Jiming said, there is a Tao scripture body refinement technique. If you can successfully cultivate it, you will have a Tao body, a true Tao body. This body can be said to be the most ancient body in the world. Today your physical body is the strongest. Even a Tao confirming expert would find it difficult to injure you. Moreover, this body has another strong point: it is untainted by all karma. Of course, except for disasters. Yi Xian was speechless. Yi Jiming said, most importantly, this body can suppress some of the Yin arts of the Yin world. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, is the realm of ultimate bliss weaker than the Yin world? Yi Jiming shook his head. The current realm of extreme bliss can't be compared to the underworld, but there was a period of time in the past when the realm of extreme bliss was extremely terrifying. At that time, the realm of extreme bliss could completely contend against the underworld. Of course, if they really fought, they might not be able to win. However, it was not like now, where there is no possibility of fighting. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, then it declined? Yi Jiming nodded. There was a serious problem within the realm of ultimate bliss. At that time, an extremely powerful monk brought a few Buddhist monks to the Yin world. Yi Xian frowned. To the Yin world? Yi Jiming nodded. That Buddha made a great wish. Saying so, she glanced at Yi Xian. The realm of ultimate bliss has some relationship with the Yin world. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly understood why the abbot knew about the Yin world. Yi Jiming said again, the departure of that monk had a huge impact on the realm of ultimate bliss. Later on, some of the monks went into seclusion to comprehend, causing the realm of ultimate bliss to decline. The infinite Buddha body was created by that monk. Once it is mastered, it will be protected by the infinite Buddha, which is a great counter to the Yin world. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, if I go to the realm of ultimate bliss like this, they probably won't give it to me. Yi Jiming shrugged. Aren't you good at bluffing? Go bluff them. Yi Xian was speechless. Yi Jiming said, why don't you go look for the Tao scripture, the one with the Tao scripture? Yi Xian said, do you know where the rest of the Tao scripture is? Yi Jiming said, there's one in the realm of ultimate bliss. Yi Xian glanced at Yi Jiming. Damn it, this woman wants me to look for cultivation techniques, but the Tao scripture is the real deal. Yi Jiming said again, but the people of the realm of ultimate bliss don't know that they have the Tao scripture. Yi Xian frowned. What do you mean? Yi Jiming said, the reason why the realm of ultimate bliss was so strong was because they had a Tao scripture, the fate scripture. At that time, the senior monk who obtained the Tao scripture was a true senior monk. Although he knew that it was a Tao scripture, he didn't say it out loud because he knew that if he said it out loud, the Western paradise would be plunged into a bloody storm. So, he slowly cultivated it himself and merged the Tao scripture into some Buddhist scriptures. This way, the people of the realm of ultimate bliss learned the Tao scripture but didn't know it was a Tao scripture. This saved the realm of ultimate bliss a lot of trouble. She paused for a moment before continuing. Actually, the people of the realm of ultimate bliss don't know that many of the Buddhist scriptures they practice contain the great Tao. Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming. Miss Yi, how do you know so many things? Yi Jiming was expressionless. Can't I guess? Guess. Yi Xian's mouth twitched. He wanted to hit someone. Yi Jiming said, with your current strength, no one in the realm of ultimate bliss can do anything to you other than those ancient monks. And those ancient monks are basically in seclusion. So, do you understand what I mean? Yi Xian said in a low voice, you want me to steal? Yi Jiming was expressionless. Not steal, borrow? Yi Xian was speechless. Yi Jiming continued, not only are there Tao scriptures there is also the infinite Buddha physique that you need. If you can cultivate the infinite Buddha physique, if you cultivate the infinite Buddha body, you will have a higher chance of winning against the experts of the underworld in the future. Yi Xian frowned. With my current strength, I still can't fight against the underworld? Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. As of now, only Moon Yin has the strength to fight against the underworld. As for you, with your current strength, you can only say that you have the strength to fight back. But if you want to fight them, you can only dream on. Can't you see how that brat Sanxing is so afraid of the underworld? Yi Xian shook his head. She still wants to attack the underworld. Yi Jiming was expressionless. Do you know who gave her the courage? Yi Xian frowned. Don't tell me it's me. Yi Jiming sneered. It's you. Yi Xian was puzzled. Why? Yi Jiming said, because of the two swords in your body. Although you can't beat them, she thinks that the owner of the two swords in your body can. Her idea is simple, she wants to drag you down with her so that you can gather people to attack the underworld. Of course, there's another reason, and that's Moon Yin. She's also plotting against Moon Yin. However, this wimpy brat isn't Moon Yin's match at all. If she schemed against Moon Yin, I'm afraid she would lose herself. Saying that, she shook her head. That brat is really a brat. His thoughts are simple, naive, and stupid. She was also very afraid of Moon Yin. She originally had some plans, but because of Moon Yin, she didn't dare to use them. She really didn't dare to. She was afraid that that woman would plot against her. Yi Xian. Yi Jiming said, "Let's go to the realm of ultimate bliss." Yi Xian said after a slight hesitation, "Are we really going?" Yi Jiming said in a low voice, "You don't have much time left." Yi Xian thought about it and said, "I'm going to the Tao world." With that, he disappeared with Yi Jiming. Soon Yi Xian arrived at the Tao world and found Jiang Yu and Li Qing. Jiang Yu looked at Yi Xian, "You want to go to the realm of ultimate bliss?" Yi Xian nodded, "Yes. I feel that we can't just sit here and wait for death. I'll go to the realm of ultimate bliss to negotiate and get them to return the study to us." Jiang Yu hesitated, "I don't think they'll return it." Yi Xian pointed to himself, "I can open the study and negotiate with them." Jiang Yu shook his head, "Young Master Yi, that's too risky." Yi Xian smiled, "Are we just going to sit here and wait for death?" Jiang Yu fell silent. Yi Xian said, "I can't go alone. I need you to cheer for me." Jiang Yu frowned slightly, "You want us to go with you?" Yi Xian nodded, "Call all the self-release realm experts. Of course you don't have to enter the realm of ultimate bliss. I can go in alone. But we have to let the realm of ultimate bliss understand our determination and attitude." Saying that, he glanced at the two of them and continued, "Either we win together or we die together." Jiang Yu fell silent. Li Qing glanced at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Obviously both of them were hesitant. Because it was too risky. Yi Xian sighed softly, "Both of you want the study but don't want to risk your lives. How is that possible? If this goes on, we can only passively take a beating." Jiang Yu said in a low voice, "Young Master Yi, I feel that you'll be sending a lamb to the tiger's mouth and dying in vain." Yi Xian smiled, "Since that's the case, then I choose to share the study with them." Saying that, he turned and left. Jiang Yu and Li Qing's expressions changed drastically. Chapter 1287. The Shared Study Room. What were they most afraid of now? They were afraid that Yi Xian would side with the world of paradise. Because once that happened, it was very likely that the world of paradise would open the study room. At that time the Tao world would be completely finished. When they saw Yi Xian leave, both of them simultaneously obstructed Yi Xian's path. Jiang Yu spoke in a low voice, "Young Master Yi, don't be impulsive." Yi Xian shook his head, "We don't have much time left. If we continue to delay like this, what if the world of paradise finds a way to deal with the study room? At that time, we'll be in an even more passive position." Jiang Yu gazed at Li Qing and the latter spoke in a low voice, "Young Master Yi, are you sure that the study room is in the hands of the world of paradise?" Yi Xian nodded, "I'm very sure." Li Qing remained silent for a long time before he said, "Then let's go." Jiang Yu gazed at Li Qing and the latter spoke softly, "It really isn't good for us to delay like this." After a short moment of silence, a trace of gloominess flashed through Jiang Yu's eyes. "Let's go." In next to no time, almost 80 self-release realm experts were led by Yi Xian straight towards the world of paradise. Around 2 hours later, all of them traversed the River of Stars and arrived at an unknown stellar region. Actually, Yi Xian didn't know where the world of paradise was at all. Fortunately, Li Qing knew. There were some Buddha statues in the starry sky before them. Li Qing pointed at a golden Buddha statue that was almost 3 kilometers tall. "That's the entrance to the world of paradise." Yi Xian gazed at the Buddha statue. Right at this moment, the Buddha statue suddenly opened its eyes, and then 2 rays of golden light shot out explosively from its eyes. The golden light tore through the starry sky, and its target was Yi Xian and the others. Jiang Yu frowned slightly. He took a step forward and smashed his fist forward. Bang! The space in front of him shattered into nothingness, and the 2 rays of golden light were directly devoured by the shattered space. Amit Ba. Meanwhile, a voice suddenly resounded. Everyone looked over and saw a monk standing not far away. The monk wore a simple robe and held a string of prayer beads in his hand. He was a little plump. The monk looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, "You must be young Master Yi." Yi Xian nodded. "How should I address you, Master?" The monk smiled. Venerable Me. Yi Xian smiled and said, "Master Mizun, we came here today to negotiate with the realm of ultimate bliss." Venerable Me's eyes flashed with surprise. "Negotiate?" Yi Xian nodded. "Master, your bodhisattva stole my study room. Isn't that a little immoral?" Venerable Me looked at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, our bodhisattva has fallen." Yi Xian frowned. "What do you mean?" Venerable Me clasped his hands together. "Young Master Yi should know better than us." Yi Xian shook his head. "I'm not sure." All I know is that he severely injured me and then escaped with my study room. Venerable Me looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, we have confirmed that he died in your hands. Hearing that, Jiang Yu frowned. That's impossible. Although young Master Yi is strong, he isn't strong enough to kill an extreme self-release realm expert. Venerable Me chuckled. Pavilion Master Jiang, you know too little about this young Master Yi. Jiang Yu looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled. I never expected you to bite back. Master, Pavilion Master Jiang and the others saw me being severely injured that day. Jiang Yu nodded. Yi Xian's injuries were not light at all. Li Qing glanced at Yi Xian and did not say a word. Venerable Me smiled. Young Master Yi, you're distorting the truth. You're really powerful. You killed someone and still want to frame my realm of Western Paradise. You're too sinister. Yi Xian said calmly, Master, if you don't have evidence to prove that I killed your bodhisattva, then don't speak nonsense. Jiang Yu also looked at Venerable Me. Master, do you have evidence? Venerable Me shook his head. No. Back then Yi Xian killed very cleanly. That bodhisattva's soul was completely destroyed. Yi Xian suddenly said, Master, I came here today to cooperate with Realm of Western Paradise. As far as I know, Realm of Western Paradise can't open the study room yet, right? Venerable Me looked at Yi Xian. I don't know how to answer you. Yi Xian's expression did not change. Master, I have an idea. I think we can cooperate. I'll open the study room and everyone can share the scriptures in the study room. What do you think? Venerable Me sighed softly. Young Master Yi, that study room is really not in my Realm of Western Paradise's hands. Yi Xian looked at Jiang Yu. They want to keep it for themselves. Jiang Yu looked at Venerable Me in the distance. His expression was somewhat unfriendly. Venerable Me sighed again. Young Master Yi, one of my Buddhist ancestors has already divined that the study room is still in your hands. And that bodhisattva was indeed killed by you. Although we don't know how young Master Yi killed him, we can be sure that he died in the hands of young Master Yi. Yi Xian smiled. Master, if you put it that way, then I can only say that someone behind me has also divined it. And the result is that the study room is in your Realm of Western Paradise's hands. Venerable Me looked at Yi Xian and clasped his hands together. Young Master Yi, you're a swordsman and a rare swordsman at that. You speak irresponsibly, distort black and white, fabricate things out of thin air. Won't your conscience be condemned? Yi Xian was speechless. Venerable Me continued. Young Master Yi, although we're opponents, we still respect young Master Yi very much. Please, young Master Yi, respect us and stop playing these shady tricks. We can fight openly, really. Yi Xian sighed softly. Master, I don't like hearing you say that. You keep saying that I'm slandering you, but do you have any evidence? Also, you keep saying that Maha Bodhisattva died in my hands, but you don't have any evidence to prove that Maha Bodhisattva died in my hands. In my opinion, after you get the study room, you still want me, Yi Xian, to be the scapegoat. You're the real sinister ones. Venerable Me looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, you're invincible. I have nothing to say to you. As he said that, he clasped his hands together and silently chanted scriptures, forcefully suppressing the anger in his heart. Don't be angry. A monk needs to calm his heart. Yi Xian suddenly opened his palm. There was a ball of Buddhist light in his hand. Spiritual insight. Venerable Me glanced at the ball of Buddhist light in Yi Xian's hand. There was a complicated look in his eyes. This old monk has cultivated for nearly 100 years before achieving spiritual insight. How can someone like you, young Master Yi, also achieve spiritual insight? Is my Buddha's eye blind? Yi Xian's face darkened. Master, I remember there's a saying in Buddhism that all living beings are equal. What? In Venerable Me's heart, there's still a hierarchy? Venerable Me looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, don't spoil my state of mind with such words. In terms of Dharma cultivation, young Master Yi is probably not my match. Of course, in terms of shamelessness, sinister, and cunning, even 10 old monks can't compare to young Master Yi. Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, Jiang Yu suddenly said, Great monk, I think young Master Yi's suggestion is very good. Since you have the study room and young Master Yi can open it, why don't the three of us cooperate? Venerable Me glanced at Jiang Yu. Pavilion Master Jiang, you were sold by young Master Yi, and you still have to count the money for him. Jiang Yu frowned slightly. Great monk, is there any point in trying to sow discord now? Is there any point in sowing discord? Venerable Me sighed. Young Master Yi's methods are brilliant. This old monk admires him. At this moment Li Qing suddenly said, Master, you said that young Master Yi killed your bodhisattva. But as far as I know, young Master Yi is only at the self-release realm. Why do you think he killed your bodhisattva? Venerable Me looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, are you really at the self-release realm? Yi Xian nodded. I am at the false self-release realm. Moreover, I only reached it recently. At that time I wasn't. Venerable Me clasped his hands together. Young Master Yi has hidden his strength. Yi Xian looked at Li Qing. They don't have any evidence, but they insist that I killed their bodhisattva. Li Qing was silent. Actually, she felt that there was something fishy about this matter. However, she did not believe that Yi Xian could kill an extreme self-release realm expert at the origin returning realm-breaking realm. Under such circumstances, Yi Xian could only kill his opponent instantly and destroy the evidence. That was the only way he could deceive everyone. But how could Yi Xian do that? Venerable Me suddenly said, Fifth Dimension Tendo. Everyone looked at Venerable Me. Venerable Me said solemnly, Young Master Yi might not be able to do it, but that Fifth Dimension Tendo is definitely able to do it. Yi Xian smiled. Master, didn't you say that I killed your bodhisattva? How did it become a Fifth Dimension Tendo? Venerable Me said, I think that Miss Mu helped you. Fifth Dimension Tendo. Jiang Yu and Li Qing looked at each other. Although Yi Xian did not have the ability to kill an extreme self-release realm expert, this Fifth Dimension Tendo could. Could the study room really be in Yi Xian's hands? Jiang Yu and Li Qing looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled. Forgive me for speaking bluntly. If the study room was really in my hands, I could have asked her to help me open it and obtain the Tao scripture inside. Why wait until now? Jiang Yu was silent. Yi Xian looked at Venerable Me. Master, can I have a word with you? Venerable Me looked at Yi Xian. Sure. Yi Xian walked to Jiang Yu's side and said softly, Pavilion Master Jiang, I will think of a way to enter the realm of ultimate bliss. As long as I enter, I will be able to sense the study room. Jiang Yu nodded. Understood. Young Master Yi, be careful. Yi Xian nodded. He was about to leave when Jiang Yu suddenly said, Young Master Yi. Yi Xian looked at Jiang Yu. Jiang Yu said solemnly, Young Master Yi, I believe in you. Yi Xian was a little touched. Thank you. With that said, he and Venerable Me disappeared into the distant starry sky. At the end of the starry sky, the two walked slowly. Yi Xian suddenly said, Master, to be honest, I know the study room is not in the hands of the realm of ultimate bliss, but it is not in my hands either. Venerable Me was slightly stunned. He looked at Yi Xian. Then who has it? Yi Xian smiled. Master, who do you think has it? Venerable Me said solemnly, Fifth Dimension Tendo. Yi Xian shook his head. Venerable Me frowned slightly. Then who has it? Yi Xian said seriously, the underworld. Venerable Me was stunned. Then he put his palms together. Young Master Yi, do a good deed. Don't fool me. This old monk has cultivated Dharma for nearly 1,000 years. I really can't play with these shady things. Just tell me what you want to do. With regards to your words, this old monk still retains some credibility. Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. What's the best way to get votes now? Everyone can say it. I'm ready to sacrifice myself. Chapter 1288. Yi Xian was a little embarrassed. This monk didn't fall for it. Yi Xian said solemnly, Master, I can tell you who is in possession of the study. However, I have a condition. Venerable Me glanced at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, that study is actually in your hands, right? Yi Xian shook his head, his expression calm. It's really not in my hands. I can swear to the heavens on this. Venerable Me shook his head. Young Master Yi, I heard that you swear like farts. Yi Xian's face was full of black lines. Master, you don't believe in my character? I'm a wise man. Venerable Me clasped his hands together. Even the Buddha can be blind sometimes. Yi Xian was a little speechless. Damn, this monk is really stubborn. Yi Xian didn't say anything else. He turned around and left. At this moment, Venerable Me suddenly said, Young Master Yi, what do you want in exchange for handing over the study? Yi Xian looked at Venerable Me, and Venerable Me said again, As far as we know, you have a person from the underworld with you, right? Yi Xian smiled. You guys know quite a lot. Venerable Me shook his head. Young Master Yi, you can't go against the underworld. Yi Xian smiled. Master Me, I heard that the underworld has an almighty being from the realm of ultimate bliss, is that right? Venerable Me took a deep look at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi knows a lot. Yi Xian was a little puzzled. Master, you guys are a group of outsiders, why can't you let me go? Venerable Me clasped his hands together and said seriously, If young Master Yi is willing to hand over the study, you'll be letting yourself go. Yi Xian smiled. That's gangster logic. That's my thing. You guys want to snatch it from me but you make it sound like it's my fault. Venerable Me said softly, Young Master Yi, most of the time when a person possesses something that doesn't match his strength, it's a disaster for that person. Of course, young Master Yi was very strong. However, young Master Yi occupying that study room is tantamount to making the whole world his enemy. Yi Xian looked at Venerable Me and smiled happily. Master, everyone outside thinks that the study house is in the hands of the realm of ultimate bliss. Venerable Me smiled, they can't do anything to my realm of ultimate bliss. Yi Xian smiled and said, what if we add the 5-dimensional Tendo? Venerable Me was silent. Even the realm of ultimate bliss couldn't afford to offend that woman. Yi Xian added, Grandmaster should know about the godly kingdom of Shumi. Yes, that little girl from the netherworld is one of my companions. What if we add her into the mix? Venerable Me looked at Yi Xian and said, Young Master Yi wants to declare war on my realm of ultimate bliss? The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly, and he laughed arrogantly. You guessed right. I want to gather all the self-release experts in the 5-dimensional universe and the Tao world to declare war on the realm of ultimate bliss. We won't rest until one side is dead. After saying that, he turned and left. At this moment, Venerable Me suddenly said, Young Master Yi, that study room is clearly in your hands. Yi Xian blinked. The more I target the realm of ultimate bliss, the more people will think that the study room is in the hands of the realm of ultimate bliss. Venerable Me looked at Yi Xian and said softly, Young Master Yi, as far as I know, the 5-dimensional universe still has the 5-dimensional tribulation. Yi Xian shrugged his shoulders. Attack the realm of ultimate bliss, then I will move all the beings in the 5-dimensional universe to the realm of ultimate bliss. Venerable Me frowned. Young Master Yi, are you serious? Yi Xian turned and left. Venerable Me suddenly blocked in front of Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, we can talk about the conditions you just mentioned. Actually, he wasn't afraid of Yi Xian or the Tao world, but he was afraid of Moon Yanyan and Tao Sanxing. Especially Moon Yanyan. Previously, Bodhisattva Wen Tian led the 18 ancient arhats and Lu Shibai to besiege Moon Yanyan, but everyone died. Moon Yanyan. Whether it was the realm of ultimate bliss or the godly kingdom of ultimate bliss, they were all afraid of her. Therefore he was afraid that Yi Xian would bring Moon Yanyan and Tao Sanxing to attack the realm of ultimate bliss. Once those two women went to the realm of ultimate bliss, the consequences would be unimaginable. Yi Xian looked at Venerable Me. I want to go to your realm of ultimate bliss. Venerable Me asked in a deep voice, what for? Yi Xian put his palms together and bowed slightly. Master, to tell you the truth, I yearn for the path of Buddhism very much. Therefore, I want to study Buddhism in your esteemed realm and further improve myself so that my cultivation of Buddhism can reach another level. Venerable Me looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, please speak in human language. Yi Xian, Venerable Me said in a deep voice, Young Master Yi, do you know what kind of reputation you have in the myriad worlds? Without waiting for Yi Xian to answer, he continued, shameless, treacherous, shameless, extremely shameless. The world now calls you the most shameless person in history. Do you know that? Yi Xian said with a smile, no matter how shameless and shameless I am, I will never rob others. Venerable Me sighed and changed the topic. Young Master Yi, you don't really want to study the Dharma Tao, am I right? Yi Xian said in a serious tone, I really want to study the Dharma Tao. Venerable Me looked at Yi Xian, not saying a word. But it was obvious he didn't believe him. Yi Xian said with a smile, all right. I'll be honest, other than studying the Dharma Tao, I also want to study the realm of ultimate bliss, invincible Buddha physique. Venerable Me frowned, invincible Buddha physique? Yi Xian nodded, yes. Venerable Me said in a deep voice, Young Master Yi, that's absolutely not for you to cultivate. That's the supreme body tempering technique of my Buddhist school. Other than my Buddhist disciples, no one else can cultivate it. Yi Xian quickly said, Master, I'm willing to join the Buddhist school. Venerable Me's mouth twitched as he shook his head with a bitter smile. Young Master Yi, please be a man. This old monk is an honest man, so don't play these fancy games with this old monk. Yi Xian said in a serious tone, Master, I'm a wise man. Am I not qualified to join the realm of ultimate bliss? Venerable Me said in a deep voice, Young Master Yi, you're not here to study the Dharma Tao, you're here to learn my Buddhist cultivation technique. If this old monk didn't guess wrongly after you finish learning it, you might even use it to beat up my Buddhist disciples, right? Yi Xian said, actually it was Sister Nian who asked me to come. Venerable Me frowned, 5-dimensional Tendo? Yi Xian nodded. She said that the invincible Buddha physique is very suitable for me to cultivate, so she asked me to come find you. Venerable Me glanced at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, that's my Buddhist school. Yi Xian spread his hands. That study is still mine. Didn't you come to snatch it anyway? Venerable Me was speechless. Yi Xian smiled. It's fine. Since your realm doesn't want me to cultivate it, then I'll go find Sister Nian. I'll ask her to personally come to the realm of ultimate bliss. With that he turned around and left. Venerable Me hurriedly said, Young Master Yi, please wait. Yi Xian looked at Venerable Me. Master Me, what's the matter? Venerable Me said in a deep voice, Young Master Yi, what's your relationship with that five-dimensional Tendo? Yi Xian opened his palm, and the Tendo sword appeared in his hand. When he saw the Tendo sword, Venerable Me was stunned, then said softly, She gave this sword to you? Yi Xian nodded. That's right. Venerable Me was silent. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Venerable Me looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, follow me. With that he turned around and left. Yi Xian glanced at the end of the starry sky, then he followed. At this moment Yi Jiming's voice suddenly sounded in Yi Xian's mind. Something's fishy, you have to be careful. Yi Xian nodded. When Yi Xian followed Venerable Me to the realm of ultimate bliss, he was shocked. The spiritual energy in the realm of ultimate bliss was too pure. It was at least 10 times that of the five-dimensional universe. It was even purer than the Tao world and the godly kingdom of Shumi. Moreover, it was very dense. Cultivating in this place was twice the result with half the effort. Yi Xian looked around. There were some ancient temples and pagodas floating in the air, all of them exuding a powerful aura. The overall strength of the realm of ultimate bliss was definitely above the godly kingdom of Shumi. At this moment, Venerable Me suddenly said, Young Master Yi, aren't you afraid of us attacking you? Yi Xian smiled. Master, what level is Bodhisattva when Tian's strength in the realm of ultimate bliss? Venerable Me was silent. Although when Tian was only a Bodhisattva, he was the head of all Bodhisattvas. His strength was even higher than some Bodhisattvas. Yi Xian's words were a threat. Venerable Me suddenly said, Young Master Yi, Miss Mu is not invincible. Yi Xian looked at Venerable Me. Master, if I'm not wrong, what you need now is time, right? Venerable Me did not speak. Yi Xian continued, You and the godly kingdom of Shumi wanted to kill Sister Nian, but you failed. Sister Nian's strength far exceeds your expectations. Next, you don't dare to act rashly. Or rather, you are waiting for the fifth dimension tribulation to arrive. At that time, if Sister Nian wants to help the five-dimensional universe, it will be your best opportunity. You want to act at that time. Or perhaps you want to seek help from the underworld. After all, I have a little girl who came from the underworld by my side, and she has a grudge with the underworld. You want to contact the underworld and use it to deal with me and Sister Nian, right? Venerable Me looked at Yi Xian, his expression calm, but his heart was shaken. Yi Xian smiled. Master, it seems I guessed correctly. Right? Venerable Me clasped his hands together. Young Master Yi, do you know that by causing trouble like this, not only will you harm yourself, you will also harm Miss Mu? Because as far as we know, her current body is not very good. Yi Xian looked at Venerable Me. Master, if I behave myself, will you let me go? Venerable Me frowned. Then young Master Yi, why don't you give up on the study? Yi Xian smiled. Master, I have my eyes on the realm of ultimate bliss. May I ask, can you give it to me? Venerable Me was silent. Yi Xian continued, I don't care about the study, and I don't care about the Tao scriptures inside. But I know that even if I give you the Tao scriptures, you won't let me go. Because you will feel that I am a threat. Only by cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots can you truly be at ease, right? Venerable Me was silent. Yi Xian continued, Moreover, since you have your eyes on the study of me Yi Xian today, I Yi Xian will have to give it to you. But what if you have your eyes on my Yi Xian's woman in the future? Will I also have to give it to you? Saying this Yi Xian smiled. Enduring for a while won't calm down. Taking a step back will only make the enemy want more. Chapter 1289. Retreat? Yi Xian was clear that he had no way out. Even if he handed over the study, these people would still not let him go. To him, what he needed to do now was to frantically increase his and the fifth dimension strength. Strength was the way of the king. Without strength, everything else was just fleeting clouds. The prophet's words left a deep impression on him. How could the plainly dressed woman sever her own karma? Because she was strong enough, no karma would dare to taint her. When one's strength reached a certain level, even if it was a disaster, it would only bear good karma. Venerable Me did not say anything else. He knew that the realm of ultimate bliss in Yishan could not be resolved peacefully. But now the realm of ultimate bliss needed some time. Because the biggest threat to them was not Yishan, but Moon Yinyin and Dao Sanxing. When they could not deal with those two women, they did not dare to attack Yishan because they could not withstand their revenge. And Yishan dared to come to the realm of ultimate bliss because he saw this point. Not long later, Venerable Mi brought Yishan to a Buddhist temple where some monks were chanting. Yishan's gaze swept across them, they were all powerful monks. Venerable Mi looked at Yishan. Young Master Yi, didn't you say that you like Buddhism? There are 360,000 scriptures here, all Mahayana scriptures. You can read them as you wish. Yishan said solemnly, Master, what about indestructible Buddha body? Venerable Mi smiled. Young Master Yi, do you know what is needed to cultivate that indestructible Buddha body? It requires a very high level of Buddhism cultivation. Yishan was silent. Yi Jiming suddenly said, he did not lie to you. But he wants to use these scriptures to stall you. Yishan nodded and thought to himself, I know. Yi Jiming said again, don't worry, our real goal is these scriptures. Yishan looked at Venerable Mi, Master, I'll study these scriptures first. Venerable Mi clasped his hands together. Young Master Yi, take your time to learn. After saying that, he left. At this moment, Yi Jiming's voice sounded in Yishan's mind, Kid, don't underestimate these scriptures. They are all treasures because they contain the wisdom of our predecessors. If you can really comprehend them, the benefits they will bring you will be unimaginable. Yishan said solemnly, too many. Yi Jiming said, just watch, I'll help you. Yishan nodded his head. He walked in front of a bookshelf and took out the first volume of Buddhist scriptures. With his current strength, he naturally had a photographic memory. He glanced at it, but he didn't really understand a lot of it. Fortunately, there was Yi Jiming. Yi Jiming would explain some of the core points and important parts of the scripture to him in detail. He had to admit that these Buddhist scriptures were indeed very useful. Even he felt that some of the Buddhist theories made sense. Of course, he was even more shocked by Yi Jiming. This woman was a freak. She could see through any Buddhist scripture with a single glance, and could even infer many things from one instance to refute some of the scriptures. At this moment, Yishan suddenly realized that he must never underestimate any woman. From the city of Azure until now, the women he met were each more terrifying than the last. After Venerable Mi left the temple, he came to a place where a monk sat in the clouds. The monk's back was facing Venerable Mi, seemingly real yet illusory. Venerable Mi clasped his hands together and bowed, Namo Buddhist Ancestor. The person before him was Namo Buddhist Ancestor of the realm of ultimate bliss, the current leader of the realm of ultimate bliss. Namo said softly, that Miss Mu has already proven her Tao, a true Tao. Venerable Mi clasped his hands together. Even though he was mentally prepared, he was still shocked. A true Tao realm. The realm of ultimate bliss had it in the past, but not in the current realm of ultimate bliss. Even though this Namo Buddhist Ancestor was also in the Tao realm, it was a false Tao realm. There was a huge gap between him and Moon Yanyan's Tao realm. Namo continued, I want to make a trip to the netherworld. Venerable Mi looked at Namo. Namo clasped his hands together, during this period do not make a move against that young Master Yi. With that, his body turned illusory, disappearing with the wind like a wisp of smoke. Godly Kingdom of Shumi. In the depths of a certain mountain, dozens of people stood in front of a cave, waiting quietly. These were the experts of the godly kingdom of Shumi's royal family. After an unknown period of time, the stone door of the cave suddenly cracked open, and a middle-aged man walked out. Seeing the middle-aged man, the expert's blood boiled. Ancestor of the godly kingdom of Shumi, Nanchu. Nanchu looked at his own body and said softly, this possession technique has too many drawbacks. In theory he couldn't live that long, but he still forcefully used this possession technique to keep his soul alive. However, possession was not tolerated by the great Tao. His current strength was not even half of his peak. Of course, to this world he was still a top-notch expert. However, he had to face a problem, and that was to cultivate his own physical body. Otherwise, when his current physical body was destroyed, his soul would be erased by this world. The stronger the person, the more difficult it was to possess. The great Tao did not tolerate it. How chaotic would the world be if experts from ancient times began to possess when they reached the end of their cultivation, and then began to cultivate again? In fact, a long time ago, possession was impossible. Once it was done, the reincarnation laws of this world would immediately erase it. Unfortunately, the great Tao collapsed and there was no order. Therefore, countless demons and ghosts appeared. However, this kind of possession had great drawbacks. Because this physical body was not his own, there was a serious problem of compatibility between his soul and this physical body. Now, it was impossible for him to cultivate a physical body with his soul. This was because his soul was not complete. Strictly speaking, he was no longer the Nanchu of the past. Nanchu looked up at the horizon and said softly, "I want to go to the netherworld." His current problem was very big. If he wanted to change the state, there was only one way, and that was to read the Tao scriptures. Moreover, he understood how terrifying Mu Nianyan and Tao Sanxing were, and it was impossible for him to go against them on his own. So, he had to seek help. Nanchu glanced at the experts of the godly kingdom of Shumi. "Before I return, don't provoke the fifth dimension and Yi Xian." After saying that, he disappeared from sight. Somewhere in the void, Nanchu met Namo Buddha from the Western Paradise. It was obvious that their meeting was not a coincidence. The two walked side by side into the distance. Nanchu smiled. "Grandmaster, tell me, how did Miss Mu reach the true what about the orthodox Tao-proving realm?" Nanchu was silent. In fact, this was something he had always been puzzled about. How did that woman reach the Tao validation realm? Nanchu suddenly said, "Grandmaster, do you think she has read the Tao scriptures?" "Tao scriptures?" Nanchu said solemnly, "It's not impossible. When the prophet went to the fifth dimension, he might have shown her the Tao scriptures." Nanchu narrowed his eyes. "That means that Yi Xian might have also read the Tao scriptures?" Nanchu clasped his hands together. "That depends on whether Miss Mu is willing to show him." Nanchu smiled. "Grandmaster, do you think Miss Mu or Yi Xian is scarier?" Nanchu looked at Nanchu. "What are you trying to say?" Nanchu said softly, "Yi Xian has a calamity cause. But he survived until now. Moreover, from what I know, there seems to be a woman in a plain dress behind him. As for this woman, I have sent people to investigate her. After she disappeared from the Tao realm, I don't know where she went. I'm afraid this person is a variable." Woman in a plain dress. Nanchu was silent. In fact, the woman's strength was also a mystery to them. They only knew that this woman only used one sword to kill. As for how strong she was, no one knew. Yi Xian and Mu Nianyan might know, but would they say it? Nanchu continued, "Grandmaster, what I want to say is that our opponent this time is not ordinary. Let's not talk about that Mu Nianyan, just this Yi Xian is not someone we can lower our guard. Let's not talk about this person's strength, the people behind him are the truly terrifying ones, especially that woman in a plain dress. We cannot underestimate her. Moreover, I feel that she might be hiding in the dark, waiting for an opportunity to give us a fatal blow." Nanchu frowned. "She's hiding in the dark?" Nanchu nodded. "Since this person claims to be Yi Xian's Tao protector, why hasn't she appeared yet? There is only one possibility, and that is that she is protecting him in the dark. If Yi Xian is in danger, then she will definitely make an appearance. However, we know very little about her. So, if we misjudge her strength, then we'll probably suffer heavy losses." As he spoke, he gazed at Nanchu and said, "Grandmaster, according to my knowledge, you're very skilled in the Tao of divination. Why don't you perform a divination on this woman and investigate her ability?" Nanchu remained silent for a moment before he suddenly opened his right hand, and then 2 copper coins appeared there. He flipped them lightly and they fell to the ground. Nanchu gazed at them, and it didn't take long for the space around him to tremble. Suddenly, the 2 copper coins vanished without a trace. Nanchu frowned. Nanchu spoke in a low voice, "What is it?" Nanchu glanced at the surroundings and said, "I can't deduce anything." Nanchu asked, "Why?" Nanchu spoke softly, "There are 2 explanations. Firstly, she used something to avoid the workings of the heavens. Secondly, she has attained the Tao validation realm and she has fused with the Grand Tao." Nanchu spoke in a low voice, "Looks like she has attained the Tao validation realm." Nanchu nodded, "Probably. 2 experts at the Tao validation realm." Nanchu remained silent for a long time. "Looks like we have to think of a way to deal with her." As he spoke, he looked up towards the horizon and spoke softly, "We're definitely unable to resist them with our current strength, so we have to rely on the strength of the nether dimension to deal with them. Especially that woman. She's Yi Xian's Tao protector and she's hiding in the shadows. We have to think of a way to get the experts of the nether dimension to eliminate her first." The nether dimension was speechless. Chapter 1290. Nanchu and Nanwu sped up. Soon they disappeared into the horizon. In the 5-dimensional universe. Somewhere in the starry sky, Mu Nianyan was grilling fish. Not far from her was Tao Sanxing. Dao Sanxing looked at the grilled fish and said, "What do you think of my plan to attack the underworld?" In her plan to attack the underworld, this woman was indispensable. In her opinion, only this woman could match the master of the underworld. Mu Yanyan looked at Dao Sanxing and smiled. Why attack the underworld? Dao Sanxing was expressionless. I don't like them. Mu Yanyan smiled. Back then you were imprisoned in the underworld, right? Dao Sanxing was silent. Mu Yanyan said softly, Girl, you are very special. It was not easy for you to have today's fortune. Therefore I have to advise you to be cautious. Dao Sanxing looked at Mu Yanyan and frowned. You don't want to attack the underworld with us? Mu Yanyan smiled. Let me tell you, there is only one way to destroy the underworld. Dao Sanxing asked hurriedly, What is it? Mu Yanyan smiled. The owner of the pagoda sword can do it. Dao Sanxing said in a low voice. I know. I told little Xuanzi to call the owner of the pagoda sword when we attack the underworld. Then she looked at Mu Yanyan. With you we can definitely destroy the underworld. Mu Yanyan shook her head and smiled. I am very busy. Dao Sanxing still wanted to say something, but Mu Yanyan suddenly said, I feel that this matter cannot be rushed. You see, there are so many troublesome matters in the fifth dimension and there are so many enemies. If we attack the underworld now, won't we be surrounded by enemies? Dao Sanxing nodded. I know. Mu Yanyan continued. Therefore, we have to solve the problem in front of us before we can think about the future. What do you think? Dao Sanxing fell silent. Mu Yanyan continued, What you need to do now is to help him solve the problem at hand. Dao Sanxing suddenly said, I have a friend in the netherworld, I want to save her. Mu Yanyan looked at Dao Sanxing and said, Follow him well. He will help you save your friends in the future. Dao Sanxing nodded. I know. The owner of the sword in the pagoda is very powerful. He might even be more powerful than my former master. She paused and looked at Mu Yanyan. You're strong too. Very strong. Mu Yanyan laughed and said nothing. Dao Sanxing stood up to leave, but she suddenly stopped and turned to look at Mu Yanyan. You're going to die, right? Mu Yanyan blinked. How is that possible? Dao Sanxing frowned. Did I sense it wrong? Mu Yanyan smiled and said, Yes, you must have felt it wrong. Dao Sanxing sighed and turned to leave. In the starry sky, Mu Yanyan opened her right hand and there was another shallow cut on her palm. 3 cuts. Mu Yanyan shook her head and smiled. At this time Ling suddenly said, Let's go. Forget about the 5-dimensional universe. Forget about that scoundrel Yi. Mu Yanyan glanced at the starry sky around him and chuckled. Ever since I was born, this world has nurtured me. Ling, everyone has a dream and I also have one. My dream is to take good care of this universe, take care of the stars, the sun, and the moon. If even I had to give up on them, how much despair would they feel? Ling suddenly said, What if scoundrel Yi doesn't treat this universe well? Have you thought about it? Mu Yanyan smiled. Then I won't let him go even if I become a ghost. In the realm of ultimate bliss. After Venerable Mi brought Yi Xian to the temple, he did not care about Yi Xian anymore. In any case, there were only some Buddhist scriptures in the temple, so it did not matter if Yi Xian stole them. During this period of time, Yi Xian had been concentrating on studying those Buddhist scriptures every day. He had to admit that this was a great help to him. Although his strength did not increase, his Buddhist cultivation was increasing. After all, he had reached the level of spiritual insight. However, he did not find any Tao scriptures among the Buddhist scriptures. Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground. At this moment he was the only one left in the temple. Yi Xian put down the Buddhist scripture in his hand and said, Miss Yi, this Buddhist scripture says that all beings are equal. What do you think? Yi Jiming was silent for a moment and said, It's not realistic. Yi Xian nodded. I also think it's not realistic. Yi Jiming said, Do you still think it's funny? Yi Xian smiled sheepishly. A little. Yi Jiming said, It's not realistic but it's not funny at all. This is a concept of Buddhism. The eminent monk who said this is benevolent and respectable, but this is simply impossible. Yi Xian was silent. Yi Jiming said, This Buddhist doctrine is not something an ordinary person can cultivate. If an ordinary person cultivates this Buddhist doctrine, they will easily become a demon. Yi Xian shook his head. I think that Buddha is a demon and the demon is Buddha. Yi Jiming asked, What do you mean? Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Buddha and demon are often separated by a single thought. Yi Jiming was silent. Yi Xian raised his head to look at the golden Buddha statue and smiled. Just like now, which Buddha would rob others? Actually, I'm very curious. Why don't they feel ashamed for doing such a thing? Isn't this behavior going against the Buddhist doctrine they cultivate? Yi Jiming said, so there are no true experts in the Western paradise now. Yi Xian was curious. So, there used to be? Yi Jiming said, yes. And there were many of them. There were many talents in the Western paradise at that time, and they were all high monks. However, the change that time had a great impact on the Western paradise. As for these monks now, if I'm not wrong, they want to reach a higher level. Also, you have to understand that they first cultivate Taoism, then they cultivate Buddhism. In other words, their ultimate goal of cultivating Buddhism is longevity and the great Tao. Hearing this, Yi Xian understood. Isn't cultivating Buddhism the same as cultivating longevity? Yi Jiming continued, keep reading. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and said, Miss Yi, I think you're very knowledgeable. Nian Nian said that she reached release 1 because of reading. Do you think she's telling the truth? Yi Jiming said, yes. Yi Xian said in a low voice, why? Yi Jiming said, if you don't understand this world, how can you understand the Tao? If you don't understand the Tao, how can you achieve it? She's someone who truly understands the great Tao. As for you, even though you've reached release 1, there's still a huge gap between you and her. What I mean is that your release 1 isn't the same as hers. Yi Xian frowned. What? Yi Jiming said in a low voice, she walked step by step. As for you, you've cheated to get here. There's a difference. So, I suggest that you focus on studying the Tao, stabilize your cultivation, and make your release 1 even more valuable. Yi Xian fell silent. Release 1. Actually, he knew that Yi Jiming was telling the truth. Because up until now, he still didn't have a clear understanding of the so-called Great Tao. Simply put, his release 1 was slightly exaggerated. Of course, it was much better than a fake release 1. Yi Jiming continued, let's continue reading. Yi Xian nodded, picking up a scroll in front of him. During this period, Yi Xian would discuss with Yi Jiming from time to time, even quarreling, but in the end Yi Xian would lose. Discussing Buddhism, discussing Tao. After interacting with this Yi Jiming for a while, he started to admire this little girl. This little lass was really erudite and multi-talented. She was practically omniscient. Actually, he was curious whether this little girl or Mu Niannian was more knowledgeable. Outside the hall, Venerable Mi stood quietly. He didn't enter, but he knew that Yi Xian had been reading those Buddhist scriptures every day. This made him very confused. Could that slippery fellow really be interested in Buddhist scriptures? That shouldn't be the case. This fellow definitely didn't come here to read Buddhist scriptures. Actually, his intuition told him that it was best to chase Yi Xian away now. But he also knew that he couldn't chase him away. That fellow was relying on Mu Niannian and Dao Sanxing to be lawless. Wait. Venerable Mi sighed, turned and left. Outside the realm of bliss, Jiang Yu and the rest were also waiting. Beside Jiang Yu, Li Qing suddenly said, do you really believe that he went in for the Tao scriptures? Jiang Yu looked at the end of the sky, whispering, Miss Li Qing, do you think you're very smart? Li Qing looked at Jiang Yu frowning, what do you mean? Jiang Yu chuckled, Miss Li Qing, how is your Tao village compared to the 5th dimension? Li Qing was silent. In the past, the Tao village definitely crushed the 5th dimension. But now, the 5th dimension's Tendo alone could crush the Tao village. Jiang Yu asked again, then how is your Tao village compared to the realm of bliss and Shumi kingdom? Li Qing frowned. The Tao village naturally couldn't compare to the realm of bliss and Shumi kingdom. Jiang Yu looked at Li Qing, since it can't compare to the 5th dimension and can't compare to the realm of bliss and Shumi kingdom, then let me ask Miss Li, what qualifications do you have to compete with them for the Tao scriptures? Li Qing looked at Jiang Yu, what do you mean? Jiang Yu smiled, nothing. I just want Miss Li Qing to understand one thing, this is a battle between the realm of bliss and Shumi kingdom, and we don't have the qualifications to compete for the Tao scriptures. We only have 2 paths now, the first is to not compete, completely give up on the Tao scriptures and then hide, not caring about anything. The second is to choose a side, Since the death of the Pope, he actually understood a lot of things. The Tao world didn't have the qualifications to compete for the Tao scriptures. Li Qing was silent. Jiang Yu said softly, not competing, not resigned. So I choose a side. Although young Master Yi is cunning and sinister, he treats his people well, so I choose him. Li Qing looked at Jiang Yu deeply, why didn't you choose the realm of bliss and Shumi kingdom? Jiang Yu smiled, because young Master Yi and that Miss Mu are sinister and cunning enough. Of course, there is another reason, and that is our young Master Yi seems to have a lot of backers. If we follow him, won't his backer be our backer? Li Qing, Chapter 1291. It had to be said that Li Qing was shocked. She did not expect Jiang Yu to be playing dumb. This pavilion master Jiang had seen through everything. Indeed, neither the Tao village nor the immortal pavilion had the qualifications to fight for the Tao scripture. Because neither the fifth dimension nor the realm of Western paradise was something the Tao world could contend against. As Jiang Yu said, they were unwilling to fight, but if they wanted to fight they only had one choice, and that was to choose a side. And Jiang Yu chose to side with Yi Xian. Jiang Yu suddenly said, "Miss Li, we will not force you to follow young Master Yi like us. Make your own choice." Li Qing was silent. Jiang Yu said, "Miss Li, if the Tao village wants to fight for the Tao scripture, we will not stop them." Li Qing looked up at the horizon and said softly, "Before we were opponents, now we are teammates." Then she shook her head and smiled, "How interesting." Jiang Yu was silent. When the enemy was too powerful, what was the best way to deal with them? Rely on them and join them. At least for the Tao world, this was their only choice unless they were willing to give up on the Tao scripture. But they did not want to give up. The reason they did not do so before was because they felt that the Tao world had the strength to do so. But now they clearly realized that they did not have the strength to do so. In fact, he was also unwilling, but he had no other choice. Li Qing was silent for a long time, then turned and left. She could not make the decision herself. What to do depended on the Tao village. But she already knew what the Tao village would do. The Tao village would wait. They would wait. Because she was not sure if Yi Xian could fight against the realm of Western paradise. Choosing a side now was too risky. In the fifth dimension. On this day, a sword chime suddenly resounded in the Great Desolation Kingdom. Then a woman appeared in the Great Desolation Kingdom's sky. It was Arrow, who had been in seclusion for many days. And right now, Luo had already reached self-release. A true release one. Arrow waved her sleeves, and the powerful force around her disappeared without a trace. The reason she could reach release one was naturally because of the Tao scripture that Yi Jiming and Yi Xian had given her. Almost at the same time, a sword cry resounded from the other side, followed by a deafening tearing sound. Audiobook and Situ. Obviously, the two of them had also come out of seclusion. In the starry sky, Situ walked in front of Audiobook. Audiobook was drinking and drinking very boldly. Situ looked at Audiobook. "Are we leaving?" Audiobook suddenly drew her sword and pointed it at Situ. "Do you have a conscience?" Situ was silent. Audiobook was expressionless. "How did you reach this realm?" "Because of his selflessness. Right now, this cosmos is facing the calamity of the fifth dimension and the calamity caused by humans. If you leave at this time, has your conscience been eaten by your blade?" With that, Audiobook turned and left. Situ Yen suddenly said angrily, "Audiobook, you stupid woman. Do you know that you might die if you stay here?" Audiobook stopped in her tracks and turned to look at Situ. "Previously he owed us. Now we owe him. Without him, you want to reach true self-release? Give you another 100 years? With that, she turned around and disappeared into the horizon. Situ Yen was silent. Her talent was naturally not bad. However, without Yi Xian's generosity and Yi Jiming's guidance, if she wanted to reach true self-release, even 100 years wouldn't be enough. As Audiobook said, they now owed Yi Xian. In a certain courtyard, the door of a room suddenly opened and a woman walked out. Qingqing Yi Clan Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent and no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as the heir is removed and Yi Lang will succeed him. The one who spoke was an old man wearing a black robe. Not far behind the old man stood a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the elders of the Yi clan. What? At this moment, a timid voice suddenly rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling. She was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. "Yi Ling, what are you doing?" The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to everyone in the ancestral hall and said timidly, "Grand Elder, my brother Yi Xian is the heir. Why did you cripple him for no reason?" The Grand Elder looked coldly at Yi Ling. "This is a matter of the clan. What are you interrupting for?" Yi Ling was clearly a little fearful. She did not dare to look the Great Elder in the eye, but she did not leave. Instead, she mustered up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides of the hall and said, "Elders, My brother is currently fighting with the Li family for the mining rights of the mine in Nanshan. He is now fighting for the family, and it is unknown whether he is alive or dead. However, the family has used a groundless excuse to remove his position as the crown prince. Impudent. The Grand Elder suddenly raged. It's not up to a little girl like you to decide whether to strip him of his position or not. Men drag her away. At this time, the new heir Yi Lang suddenly laughed. You should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The Grand Elder replied coldly, then flog him 30 times. Very quickly, 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years. Even now he is fighting for the clan. The clan is unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new heir Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yi Lang inherits the title of heir. What are you yelling about?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded. Yi Ling's right cheek instantly turned red and swollen. However, she did not cry. She only covered her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled. "What's your name?" The guard quickly bowed. "Subordinate Zhang Mu greets the crown prince." Yi Lang nodded. "You're not bad. After I become the crown prince, I need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on." Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed. He quickly bowed deeply. "Subordinate will go through fire and water for the crown prince." Yi Lang nodded. "Drag him away. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't hold back. Understood?" Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang. When he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu suddenly stopped as if he had seen something. Inside the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside the hall. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe. The robe was tattered and covered in blood. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's mouth curled into a cold smile. In the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes. His face was dark and gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this moment, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Zhang Mu felt dizzy and he stumbled and fell. Yi Lang did not stop there. He charged at Zhang Mu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man. How dare you?" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stomped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, "Prince, save me!" Yi Xian ignored Zhang Mu, walking up to Yi Ling. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced apart. He clenched his fists and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Qingqing Yi Clan Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue? From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince shall be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides there were the Yi clan elders. Why? Right at this moment, a slightly timid voice suddenly resounded within the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian, she had rushed over despite her illness. The old man frowned. "Yi Ling, what are you doing?" The girl called Yi Ling bowed to everyone in the hall, speaking timidly. "Great elder, my brother Yi Xian is the prince. Why did you cripple him for no reason?" The great elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. "This is a matter of the clan, why are you butting in?" Yi Ling was clearly a little fearful. She did not dare to look the great elder in the eye, but she did not leave. Instead, she mustered up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides of the hall and said, "Elders, my brother is currently fighting with the Li family for the mining rights of the mine in Nanshan. He is now fighting for the family, and it is unknown whether he is alive or dead. However, the family has used a groundless excuse to remove his position as the crown prince." Impudent. The great elder suddenly raged, "Whether he's stripped or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away." At this time the new prince Yi Lang suddenly laughed. "He should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others." The great elder replied coldly, "Then flog him 30 times. Very quickly 2 Yi clan guards rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years, and even now he's fighting for the clan. This is unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new prince Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yi Lang inherits the title of prince. What are you shouting for?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly turned red and swollen. However, she did not cry and only covered her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled, "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "Subordinate Zhang Mu greets the prince." Yi Lang nodded, "You're not bad. After I become the prince, I'll need 10 guards. From now on you'll be my guard." Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed deeply. "I'll go through fire and water for the prince, and I'll do anything for you." Yi Lang nodded, "Drag him away. This person is causing trouble in the ancestral hall. Don't hold back, understand?" Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu seemed to have seen something and suddenly stopped. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe, and the robe was tattered, and there was blood everywhere. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's mouth curled into a cold smile. In the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes and his face was dark. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang, and just as he was about to speak, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness and he stumbled and fell. Yi Lang did not stop there and he charged towards Zhang Mu again. At this time Yi Lang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you!" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Oh. Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly, while Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stomped down on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, "Prince, save me!" Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, tears welled up in her eyes. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Puh. Chapter 1292. In fact, Venerable Mi really did not expect Yi Xian to quietly read Buddhist scriptures for so many days. During this period he would come every day, and Yi Xian was indeed reading Buddhist scriptures. Other than that he did nothing else. He could not help but doubt himself. Was this guy really here to learn Buddhism? That should not be the case. At this moment Yi Xian chuckled, "Master, are you giving it to me or not?" Venerable Mi collected his thoughts. He looked at Yi Xian with a gloomy face. "Young Master Yi, what are you trying to do?" Yi Xian put away his smile and put his palms together. "Master, I just want to learn Buddhism really." Venerable Mi looked at Yi Xian without saying a word. Yi Xian said seriously, "If Master doesn't believe me, I can swear on the name of Buddha." "If what I say is false, Buddha?" Venerable Mi suddenly interrupted Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, this old monk does not understand. Why do you swear on the name of Buddha? Why don't you swear on yourself?" Yi Xian spread his palms. "Master, look, I have achieved spiritual insight. I am also a disciple of Buddhism." Venerable Mi's mouth twitched. Young Master Yi is not a disciple of Buddhism. Yi Xian looked at Venerable Mi. Master Buddha once said, with Buddha in your heart, everyone is Buddha. I, Yi Xian, have cultivated Buddhism by chance and achieved spiritual insight. Master, on what basis do you say I am not a disciple of Buddhism? Of course, I am a disciple of Buddha, not a disciple of the realm of ultimate bliss. But strictly speaking, we all believe in Buddha. What you believe in, I believe in. We cannot interfere with each other. Venerable Mi looked at Yi Xian and put his palms together. Young Master Yi, your shamelessness has refreshed my understanding of shamelessness. Yi Xian, Venerable Mi said in a deep voice, Young Master Yi, to let you learn Buddhism here is already. Yi Xian suddenly punched in front of him. Boom. The ground in front of Yi Xian collapsed. Venerable Mi's voice stopped abruptly. At this time, countless Buddhist powerhouses rushed over. Yi Xian suddenly took out the Tendo sword. Seeing the Tendo sword, Venerable Mi's eyelids twitched and he hurriedly said, Young Master Yi. Yi Xian said calmly, Venerable Mi, let me tell you, when my sister Nian comes, it won't be as simple as asking for Buddhist scriptures. Venerable Mi glared at Yi Xian. What are you trying to do? Yi Xian sheathed his Tendo sword and clasped his palms together. I am very thirsty for Buddha's help. Please, Great Master. Venerable Mi said angrily, Young Master Yi, do you think we're stupid? What are you going to do? Yi Xian was expressionless. He took out the Tendo sword again. Soon the sword began to vibrate. Seeing this, Venerable Mi's expression changed. He hurriedly said, Young Master Yi, we can negotiate. We can negotiate. Yi Xian said calmly, Great Master, I want all the Buddhist scriptures. Venerable Mi was silent. Yi Xian suddenly raged, Give it to me, or I'll call for help. The monks? Venerable Mi looked deeply at Yi Xian. Damn, this guy is playing the gangster. At this time, a voice suddenly rang out in Venerable Mi's mind. Give it to him. Venerable Mi took a deep breath and turned to leave. Give it to Yi Xian. Before Namo Buddhist Lord returned, they couldn't lure Mu Nian over. The monks around him were all looking at Yi Xian. Their gazes were a little unfriendly, but some of them were curious. Yi Xian looked at the monks around him and clasped his palms together. Greetings, Great Masters. Who has the indestructible body? I would like to borrow it. All the monks. Yi Xian still wanted to ask something, but the monks suddenly turned around and disappeared. Yi Xian blinked and said, Am I that terrifying? At this moment, Yi Jiming appeared beside Yi Xian. There's only one explanation for their tolerance. Do you understand? Yi Xian nodded, and the smile on his face gradually disappeared. They should be contacting the underworld. Yi Jiming said in a low voice, What if the experts of the underworld come? Yi Xian laughed and said, We have to see him. What kind of attitude was that? If you want to kill me, I will definitely kill my way back. Speaking of which, the underworld shouldn't have any thoughts about this scripture, right? Yi Jiming said, Wrong. I can tell you that 2 of the 9 Tao scriptures are in the underworld. The status of the Tao scriptures in the underworld is not lower than that of the Tao stone. And now, not only do I have the Tao stone, I also have the Tao scriptures. Unless you're willing to hand it over. Yi Xian was silent. Yi Jiming continued, Be it the Tao stone or the Tao scriptures, they are the supreme treasures of this world. And now both of them are in my hands. Yi Xian suddenly said, Miss Yi, with my current strength, what is my rank in the underworld? Yi Jiming said, The top. Yi Xian asked, What about above the top? Yi Jiming said, Only true Tao validation experts can pose a threat to me. And there are such experts in the underworld, and there are quite a few of them. Yi Xian suddenly laughed. Yi Jiming asked, What are you laughing at? Yi Xian said softly, Miss Yi, the underworld is actually not the strongest force in this universe, right? Yi Jiming said, Indeed not. Yi Xian said in a low voice, Whirling world? Milky Way realm? Yi Jiming shook his head. There's another place. That place is the most dangerous, but I can't tell you. Yi Xian was puzzled. Why? Yi Jiming said, That place is very special. It's unspeakable and unreadable. If I tell you, I will suffer a backlash. Yi Xian frowned. It's that terrifying? Yi Jiming nodded. Other than that special place, we also have to be careful of the whirling world because the Tao scripture might have originated from there. Yi Xian said in a low voice, Might? Is it true or not? Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. Yes. Yi Xian stared at Yi Jiming. Are you sure? Yi Jiming nodded. Yes. Yi Xian said in a low voice, Miss Yi, what's your goal? After a moment of silence, Yi Jiming said, find all the pages of the Tao scripture and complete it. Yi Xian asked. And then? Yi Jiming was about to speak when Venerated Me suddenly appeared in front of them. Venerated Me looked at Yi Jiming. Miss, you are? Yi Xian said, my younger sister. Younger sister. Venerated Me frowned. Isn't your younger sister Yi Ling? At this moment, a sword intent enveloped Venerated Me. Yi Xian stared at Venerated Me. What happened between us has nothing to do with my younger sister. Don't go looking for her or I'll fight you to the death. Venerated Me looked at Yi Xian. With a wave of his right hand, a large pile of Buddhist scriptures appeared in front of Yi Xian before he turned and left. Yi Xian suddenly said, don't go looking for my younger sister or I'll fight you to the death. Venerated Me didn't reply and disappeared into the distance. Yi Jiming suddenly asked, do you really want him to go looking for your younger sister? Yi Xian shook his head. No. I don't want them to go looking for my younger sister, really? With that, he kept the Buddhist scriptures and walked towards the Buddhist hall. Yi Jiming hurriedly followed. Is your younger sister special? Yi Xian shook his head. Not special, just an ordinary girl. Yi Jiming glanced at Yi Xian. That's impossible. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Miss Yi, I'll tell you the truth. Even Sister Nian might not be able to defeat my younger sister. How strong is the soul in Yi Ling's body? He didn't know. All he knew was that the woman with the spear respected the mysterious woman. Even now, he didn't have the confidence to defeat the mysterious woman. To put it simply, the mysterious woman's strength was no weaker than Moon Yanyan's. Yi Jiming suddenly asked, can we talk about the people behind you? Yi Xian shook his head. I can't because I don't know many of them. Yi Jiming asked, how are they related to the green-robed man? Yi Xian thought for a moment. I'm also from the Sword Sect, and he's the founder of the Sword Sect. Yi Jiming frowned. That's it? Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming. What do you mean? Yi Jiming said in a deep voice, I feel like the two of you are similar. Yi Xian blinked. Don't tell me he's my father? Yi Jiming said softly, is it impossible? Yi Xian laughed. Big sis, do you think I haven't thought about this? But do you know? He's someone from many years ago. Moreover, he had already left this universe a long time ago. Tell me, how can I be his son? Yi Jiming fell silent. Yi Xian said again, I've met him twice. Do you know what my impression of him is? Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian said, he's very easygoing. Anyway, he's the kind of person who has a good temper and is approachable. One look and you can tell that he's an honest man. It's impossible for someone like him to have the demonic bloodline of mine. Yi Jiming frowned. He doesn't have such a bloodline? Yi Xian shrugged. In any case, I don't feel it. Yi Jiming fell silent. Yi Xian said again, looking at my bloodline, it goes without saying that my ancestor or that cheap father of mine isn't a good person. As for that green-robed man, I think he has a good temper. Yi Jiming said in a deep voice, there are two swords at the top of the pagoda. One of them belongs to the green-robed man. What about the other one? Yi Xian said, it belongs to the banished Immortal Island's founder. I've seen that swordsman once and he even helped me. Yi Jiming glanced at Yi Xian. That means the green-robed man, the plain-robed woman, and the banished Immortal Island's founder are related to him, right? Yi Xian nodded. You can say that. Yi Jiming suddenly said, and this Moon Yanyan? I suddenly realized that he's a second-generation heir. Yi Xian was speechless. Yi Jiming said again, if you don't think the green-robed man is your father, then who do you think is? Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, I don't know, but I know that my father has the demonic madness bloodline, so he's definitely not a good person. It's obvious that he's not a normal person. He's probably a heinous devil. Even if he's not a devil, he's definitely a lunatic. He looked at Yi Jiming. That's why I feel that if my cheap father is still here, we might have to fight one-on-one in the future. Because I don't have a good temper. I don't know if I can beat him, but it doesn't matter. If I can't beat him, I'll call for help. Yi Jiming glanced at Yi Xian. Call for who? That green-robed man? Yi Xian chuckled. It's not impossible, Miss Yi. Let me tell you, I'm very familiar with him. It won't be a problem to ask him to help me fight someone, really? Yi Jiming frowned. His bloodline isn't simple, and my father is definitely not a simple person. Can that green-robed man beat him? Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, he should be able to. P.S. Do you believe in fate? I do. In 2015, I started writing online novels and got to know many readers. It was online novels that changed my fate. But I believe that fate is not predetermined, and hard work can change everything. When I was writing Sword Domain, I didn't have any readers and I only had a dozen or so subscriptions. I worked alone every day and my monthly royalties were more than 300. Only a reader called Soul Eater told me that as long as I persisted in writing, he would give me 50 yuan every month. Actually, he didn't know that 50 yuan was a lot for me at that time. Just like that, I persisted in writing. Sword Domain's results slowly got better and better. If it wasn't for that 50 yuan, I might have really gone into the sea. In our lives, we might have to make many choices. Some people choose to give up while others choose to persevere and work hard. And every choice we make will change our fate. Perhaps hard work won't change our fate, but those who work hard will definitely live a good life. Take me for example. Although I don't have many monthly votes, I still insist on asking for votes every day. What if someone votes for me every day? Chapter 1293. Actually, Yi Xian had no love or hate for that unknown father of his. Simply put, he had no feelings for him. The two did not dwell on this issue. Yi Xian returned to the temple and continued studying the scriptures. He had to admit that these scriptures were much better than the previous ones. There were even some cultivation insights. Although not much, they were very practical. Outside the temple, Venerable Mi's face was gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. He did not think that Yi Xian was studying Buddhism. This guy must have some unspeakable secrets. But he had no choice. The realm of pure bliss could only wait for Nan Wu to return. Fortunately, Yi Xian only read the scriptures and did not do anything out of line. Otherwise, the realm of pure bliss would never agree to it. Although they were wary of Mu Nianyan, it did not mean that they did not have any tricks up their sleeves. Yi Xian understood this as well. That was why he did not ask the Buddhists to give him the innumerable Buddha indestructible body. He knew that if he did, the Buddhists would never agree to it. By that time, he would not even be able to get the scriptures, let alone the innumerable Buddha indestructible body. These scriptures may be precious, but to the realm of pure bliss, they were just scriptures. Inside the temple, Yi Xian was studying the scriptures in a frenzy. He knew that he did not have much time left. Just like that, 3 days later, Yi Xian had fully comprehended the scriptures. He and Yi Jiming found some passages from Taoist scriptures, but it was still incomplete. Inside the temple, Yi Xian sat on the ground with his legs crossed, silent. Beside him, Yi Jiming was also silent. The 4th volume of Taoist scripture was incomplete. Yi Xian turned to Yi Jiming. Is it because the monk was holding back, or the scriptures are incomplete? Yi Jiming said in a low voice, both possibilities. Yi Xian was silent. Yi Jiming was silent as well. After a long time, Yi Xian suddenly said, Miss Yi, I think we might be wrong. Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled and said, think about it, what's the purpose of that senior monk merging the 4th volume into these Buddhist scriptures? Yi Jiming narrowed his eyes. Let the Buddhist disciples of the Western Paradise learn Buddhist scriptures. Yi Xian said excitedly, yes, that senior monk's goal is to let Buddhist disciples learn Buddhist Dharma. In other words, Yi Jiming suddenly said, Buddhist scriptures are Taoist scriptures. Yi Xian nodded. If I'm not wrong, the eminent monk might have been afraid that the 4th volume of the Tao scripture would fall into the hands of an evil person. Thus he held back. Only a true Buddhist practitioner could obtain the 4th volume of the Tao scripture. Yi Jiming said, a true Buddhist practitioner, in other words, someone approved by him. Yi Xian nodded. Yi Jiming asked in a deep voice, how can we gain his recognition? Yi Xian smiled and said, it's very simple. Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian and said, don't speak. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up. Watch me. As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward. The sword domain suddenly appeared here, and it instantly enveloped all the scriptures here. Within the sword domain, Yi Xian could see through everything. In next to no time, the scriptures within the sword domain suddenly started trembling, and then some fine golden characters flew out from within the scriptures. In the end, the golden characters converged into the form of an old monk. Yi Jiming's face sank when he saw the old monk. The person in front of him should be the eminent Buddhist monk who had obtained the 4th scroll. After the senior monk appeared, his gaze fell on Yi Jiming. When he saw Yi Jiming, he was slightly stunned and said softly, you're actually from that place. Yi Jiming did not say a word. However, she had unknowingly clenched her fists. The senior monk looked at Yi Jiming and smiled. Miss, you were born with a pair of sharp eyes and a wise heart. How rare. Yi Jiming remained silent. The senior monk's gaze fell onto Yi Xian and he smiled. The cause of calamity. Yi Xian nodded. Yes. The senior monk smiled. You're wise and perceptive. Yi Xian pressed his palms together. Master, please forgive me for using such a method to invite you out. He didn't try to play tricks because doing so would only be asking to be humiliated. The senior monk chuckled. I just didn't expect that it wasn't someone from the Western realm who discovered the secrets of these scriptures, but outsiders. He paused for a moment and continued, of course, even though you're outsiders, you're still fated. Especially you, little brother. You're fated with the Buddhist realm. Yi Xian smiled. Senior, to tell you the truth, I'm enemies with the Western realm. The senior monk pressed his palms together. Little brother, I can tell that you're not an evil person. Yi Xian smiled. I have a Taoist scripture on me that the Western realm wants to steal from me. The senior monk's eyes flashed with surprise. Is it the Void Escape Scroll? Yi Xian nodded. The senior monk whispered. No wonder I sensed the aura of a prophet on you. But the prophet should have disappeared completely. Am I right? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. The senior monk sighed. The greed of humans has caused the deaths of many. Yi Xian said. Master, you merged the Taoist scripture into the Buddhist scriptures to avoid the greed of the Western realm's monks, am I right? The senior monk nodded. Monks cultivate Buddhism but also Taoism. It should be said that the ultimate goal of many monks cultivating Buddhism is to cultivate Taoism, and Taoism is to compete. Now the Western realm wants to compete for the Taoist scripture in your hands. Yi Xian asked in a deep voice, Master, what do you think of this? The senior monk smiled. You want me to criticize the Western realm? Yi Xian smiled. Master, will you? The senior monk shook his head. I won't. Yi Xian looked at the senior monk and didn't say anything. The senior monk whispered. Little brother, we live more for ourselves in this world. Changing others is the most taboo in this world because it is very difficult. It is also best not to criticize others because we are not others. We are not qualified to use our own standards and worldview to judge others. Just like the Western realm, if they want to compete, I don't have the right to criticize them. I can't stop them from competing just because I don't, right? Yi Xian was silent. The senior monk continued. Of course, in my opinion, it is wrong for them to forcefully snatch little brother's study room. But little brother, aren't your actions the same as forcefully taking the Taoist scripture from the Western realm? Yi Xian looked at the senior monk and smiled. No. If you are not willing to give it to me, I will not force it. Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian and frowned. The senior monk looked at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Yi Xian continued, Master, I am the enemy of the Western realm. If this Taoist scripture is in the hands of the Western realm, I will take it away at all costs because I will not talk about benevolence or morality to my enemies. But Master is different. Master has a benevolent heart and can distinguish between right and wrong. Most importantly, Master has never targeted me, Yi Xian. Therefore, in my heart, Master is not an enemy. The senior monk looked at Yi Xian. But I am from the Western realm. Yi Xian smiled and said, although the Elysium is my enemy, are all the monks in the Elysium bad people? Similarly, are all the people in the fifth dimension good people? A complicated look flashed in the senior monk's eyes. Good. Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. She knew that this guy was going to start his performance. Yi Xian clasped his hands together. Master, to be honest, after coming into contact with Buddhism, I am very interested in it. However, I am very confused about some of the theories and ideas of Buddhism. Master, please enlighten me. The senior monk smiled. But Yi Xian said solemnly, Master, Buddha says that all living beings are equal. However, all living beings are not equal. Is Buddha lying to people? The senior monk smiled. All living beings are equal. This statement is very absurd in the entire universe. However, in the hearts of some people, all living beings are equal. I believe that in young Master Ye's heart, young Master Yi wouldn't look down on others just because he has reached self-release, right? Yi Xian looked straight at the senior monk. Then in Master's heart? The senior monk smiled. In my heart, all living beings are equal. Of course, there is still a difference between Buddha and all living beings. The difference lies in enlightenment and unenlightenment. Buddha is an enlightened person while humans are an unenlightened Buddha. Yi Xian clasped his hands together. I understand. One last question. Master, if there is a conflict between cultivating Buddhism and cultivating Tao, what should I do? The eminent monk smiled slightly. It depends on the individual because everyone's choice is different. Some people cultivate Buddhism because they want to use the Buddhist Dharma to cultivate the Tao and achieve the legendary immortality. Some people cultivate Buddhism because they want to cultivate Buddhism and not for the sake of cultivating the Tao. Just like you, little brother. Your ultimate goal in cultivating Buddhism is to cultivate Tao. Therefore you cannot become a monk. In your heart, cultivating Buddhism is only to strengthen yourself, right? Yi Xian nodded. The senior monk clasped his hands together. In this realm of pure bliss, there are many people like young Master Yi. At this time Yi Jiming suddenly said, back then the realm of pure bliss split because of this belief, right? The senior monk glanced at Yi Jiming and smiled. Yes. Some people advocate cultivating Buddhism, while others advocate cultivating Buddhism and Tao. However, if you want to cultivate Tao, you have to fight. This is in conflict with some Buddhist teachings. Yi Jiming said solemnly, I feel that you have turned yourselves into demons. Whether it is Tao or Buddhism, it is all about fighting. Master, when you cultivate Buddhism, don't you need to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth? Isn't this the same as fighting against heaven and earth? The senior monk chuckled. Miss, your words are sharp. Yi Jiming said indifferently, isn't that so? The senior monk clasped his hands together. I have already dispersed my cultivation and returned it to this world. Yi Xian's expression changed. Yi Jiming's expression also changed. Dispersed his cultivation and returned it to this world. Did this monk really do that? The senior monk said again, Miss, you are right. Cultivating Buddhism and Tao are different paths that lead to the same goal. We did not understand this point back then. Yi Xian suddenly looked at Yi Jiming. Let's go. Yi Jiming said solemnly, the Tao scripture. Yi Xian smiled. If it is mine, then it is mine. If it isn't, then it isn't. I don't want to snatch it from you. Saying so, he pulled Yi Jiming and left. At this moment, the senior monk suddenly said, Little brother, if I give you the Tao scripture, will you still fight against the realm of Pure Land? Yi Xian stopped and looked at the senior monk. I will. The senior monk clasped his hands together. If little brother becomes invincible one day, how will you treat the realm of Pure Land? Yi Xian looked straight at the senior monk. I will kill all my enemies, be they good or bad. As long as they are my enemy, I will kill them. The senior monk looked at Yi Xian for a long time. Opening his palm, an ancient book appeared in his hand. Little brother, this is the fourth Tao scripture. Now it is yours. Saying so, the Tao scripture floated towards Yi Xian. Yi Xian's face was full of confusion. Master, this happiness came a little too suddenly. Tell me honestly, do you have a grudge against the realm of Pure Land? The senior monk was speechless. Chapter 1294. Not to mention Yi Xian, even Yi Jiming was puzzled. Yi Xian wanted to kill everyone in the realm of Pure Land, but this monk still wanted to give him the scripture. Did he have a grudge against the realm of Pure Land? The monk smiled, I have no grudge against the realm of Pure Land. No matter what little brother says, I will give it to little brother. Yi Xian frowned, why is that? The monk smiled without saying a word. Yi Xian still wanted to say something, but Yi Jiming suddenly said, let's go. Yi Xian glanced at Yi Jiming, who said softly, let's go. Yi Xian kept the scripture, nodded, and left with Yi Jiming. But soon Yi Xian stopped and turned to the monk. Master, do you know about the infinite Buddha invincible body? The monk nodded, I do. Yi Xian hesitated, then said, can you give me the infinite Buddha invincible body as well? Yi Jiming. The monk looked at Yi Xian, and after a long silence he pointed with his fingers, and a ray of Buddhist light entered Yi Xian's forehead. A moment later Yi Xian bowed to the monk, thank you. With that he left with Yi Jiming. Inside the temple, the monk put his palms together and said softly, the good karma has been sown, I hope it will bear fruit. With that, his body gradually turned illusory. Just as Yi Xian and Yi Jiming left the temple, Venerated Me appeared in front of them. Venerated Me didn't know what happened inside the temple, because Yi Xian used his sword domain to completely isolate the temple from the outside world. Venerated Me looked at Yi Xian, young Master Yi is leaving? Yi Xian nodded, smiling, yes. Is Venerated Me reluctant to part with me? Venerated Me put his palms together, young Master Yi, you think too much. Yi Jiming shook his head with a smile. Yi Xian laughed, Master, farewell. With that, he disappeared into the horizon with Yi Jiming. Venerable Me walked quickly into the hall. The scriptures were still there, not a single one missing. Venerable Me frowned. Is that guy really here to read Buddhist scriptures? When Yi Xian arrived in the starry space, Jiang Yu and the others were still there. Seeing Yi Xian, Jiang Yu quickly went up to greet him, young Master Yi. Yi Xian looked around Jiang Yu. Where's Miss Li? Jiang Yu said solemnly. She left. Yi Xian was puzzled. What? Jiang Yu smiled and said, I told her that we need to pick a side. Either we stand with young Master Yi or we stand with the realm of ultimate bliss. She might have other ideas. Yi Xian looked at Jiang Yu. You chose me. Jiang Yu nodded. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian said, Pavilion Master Jiang, let's talk somewhere else. With that, he turned and walked away. Jiang Yu hurriedly followed. In the starry space, Yi Xian and Jiang Yu slowly walked into the distance. Yi Xian suddenly said, Pavilion Master Jiang, to tell you the truth, I've already obtained the Tao scripture. Jiang Yu was stunned, then he smiled bitterly, I've already guessed it. But I can't confirm it. Yi Xian smiled and said, Why? Jiang Yu said solemnly, Young Master Yi gives me a very dangerous feeling. This danger is different from before. Moreover, Miss Mu has already reached the Tao validation realm. Logically speaking, even if young Master Yi doesn't have the Tao scripture, he can definitely reach the self-release realm. Moreover, it's the true self-release realm. In fact, many people have overlooked this point. Mu Nianyan is at the Tao validation realm. Did she rely on the Tao scripture to reach the Tao validation realm? Even if she did, that Yi Xian has such a good relationship with her, how could he not have been guided by her? Everyone's attention was on the Tao scripture, but they neglected that Mu Nianyan who has already reached the Tao validation realm. Therefore, in Jiang Yu's view, Yi Xian should have already reached the true self-release realm. And the truth proves that his guess is correct. Yi Xian suddenly said, Pavilion Master Jiang, are you willing to go to the fifth dimension? Jiang Yu looked at Yi Xian, he was stunned, then hurriedly said, Yes. Yi Xian smiled and said, Pavilion Master Jiang, you know that I have a lot of enemies now. Jiang Yu laughed heartily, so what? For the true self-release realm, I'm willing to do anything. He was very straightforward, he followed Yi Xian to reach the true self-release realm. Yi Xian looked at Jiang Yu and smiled, the true self-release realm? Pavilion Master Jiang, your requirements are too low. Jiang Yu looked at Yi Xian in shock. Young Master Yi Xian said, bring all the self-release realm experts of the Tao world to the fifth dimension. You can tell them that anyone who follows me Yi Xian, if I reach the true self-release realm, they can reach the true self-release realm. If I reach the Tao validation realm, they can reach the Tao validation realm. Of course, you have to tell them about my current situation. If they want to go, then go. If they don't want to, don't force them. Jiang Yu said solemnly, they will go. I understand them, in order to reach the true self-release realm, even if you ask them to risk their lives, they will do it. Yi Xian nodded, after going to the fifth dimension, I will get someone to guide you. Jiang Yu hurriedly bowed respectfully, many thanks. I will bring everyone to the fifth dimension now. Saying this, he turned and left. Beside Yi Xian, Yi Jiming suddenly said, good idea. Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming and Yi Jiming said, these people have reached the end of their path. Now that you have given them a new path, it is the same as giving them a new life. However, you have to understand a problem. The greatest threat to the fifth dimension is not the self-release realm, but the true Tao validation realm. If two Tao validation realm experts come, one can stall Mu Nianyan, the other can sweep the entire fifth dimension. Yi Xian smiled, I also want to recruit some Tao validation realm experts, but I can't. Why don't you introduce some to me, Miss Yi? Yi Jiming said indifferently, no. Yi Xian laughed, then said, by the way, why did that high monk give me the fourth Tao scripture? Yi Jiming said, there are two reasons. First, leaving this scripture in the realm of ultimate bliss will bring disaster to the realm of ultimate bliss. If the realm of ultimate bliss has this scripture, it will be destroyed even faster. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, but in my hands, isn't it a disaster for the realm of ultimate bliss? Yi Jiming asked, who gave you the scripture? Yi Xian said, great monk. Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. He gave you the Tao scripture and the infinite Buddha indestructible body. This is a form of good karma. In the future you will really win. At that time, will you really destroy the entire Western paradise? If he dies, what about this favor? Yi Xian was silent. Yi Jiming continued, he planted a seed of good karma, and not only that, it's a favor that you can't reject. Of course, if you lose, everything will be over. But if you win, this favor and good karma will come into play. As she said that, she glanced at Yi Xian. You think you've made a profit. But in reality he will never make a loss. Yi Xian said, he didn't leave the Tao scripture to the realm of ultimate bliss. Is it really because he's afraid that the scripture will bring more trouble to the realm of ultimate bliss? Yi Jiming nodded. The current realm of ultimate bliss can't withstand the karma of the Tao scripture. If you think about it carefully, you will realize that anyone who possesses the Tao scripture will not have a good ending, including those who were once prophets. As she said that, she paused before continuing, the people of the realm of ultimate bliss can't understand this, but that great monk can. Also, if it wasn't for the Tao protector and Moon Yin Yin behind you, you wouldn't have a good ending either. The two of them forcefully prolonged your life, do you know that? Yi Xian suddenly said, Miss Yi, what about you? Don't you also have a Tao scripture? Yi Jiming was expressionless. Do I look like I'm doing well to you? Yi Xian, Yi Jiming said, let's go. Yi Xian nodded and the two of them left. When the two of them returned to the fifth dimension, Tao World's Jiang Yu also brought close to 60 self-release realm experts to the fifth dimension. The current strength of the fifth dimension was not inferior to the godly kingdom of ultimate bliss and the realm of ultimate bliss. Moreover, more and more self-release realm experts were rushing to the fifth dimension. Because in the fifth dimension one could reach true self-release. It could be said that the current Yi Xian no longer hid the strength of the fifth dimension, and there was no need to hide it. What he needed to do now was to recruit people. Fighting alone was not enough, ganging up on others was the way to go. What was worth mentioning was that the ancient temple also sent people to the fifth dimension. In addition, the sixth dimension's Wenjiarua also brought experts from the sixth dimension to the fifth dimension. Of course, those who went were all peak experts. It could be said that the current fifth dimension had become the holy land in the hearts of all martial artists. And Yi Xian's reputation in the 10,000 worlds was also growing. Moreover, it was a good reputation because he did not monopolize the Tao scripture. In Yi Xian's words, anyone who comes to the fifth dimension to help me is my Yi Xian's brother, and I will share the Tao scripture. It was because of these words that countless self-release realm experts rushed to the fifth dimension. Now they would fight anyone who dared to touch Yi Xian with their lives. And after Yi Xian returned to the fifth dimension, he directly went into seclusion to cultivate the 10,000 Buddha undying body. As for the Tao scripture, he did not study it because the Tao of fate was not something he could touch right now. If he studied it now, it would only add to his worries. For now, he only needed to do two things. Cultivate the 10,000 Buddha undying body and improve the Tao scripture martial arts as well as his own sword Tao. His sword Tao had already reached the sword transformation realm. He had already walked a new path, and the future of this path could only be explored by himself. When Yi Xian went into seclusion, Yi Jiming was responsible for passing on the Tao and giving pointers. Of course, she did not give pointers to just anyone. She only gave pointers to those who were more reliable. After all, Yi Xian did not want to raise a group of ingrates. Dao Sanxing was not idle either. During this time, she was also giving pointers to those experts. When those self-release realm experts arrived in the fifth dimension, Dao Sanxing was overjoyed. These self-release realm experts were extremely respectful towards Dao Sanxing. Even Jiang Yu was extremely respectful when he saw her. Dao Sanxing's strength was only second to Moon Yin Yin. Although there were many experts in the fifth dimension, it was not chaotic at all. This was because no one dared to mess around. If these self-release realm experts fought in the fifth dimension, it would be very harmful to the fifth dimension. Therefore, Yi Xian had ordered that self-release realm experts could not casually fight in the fifth dimension, nor could they harm the origin of the fifth dimension. What was worth mentioning was the fifth dimension Great Formation. The fifth dimension Great Formation made by Old Manly had become even more terrifying. This was because he was now using self-release realm experts to strengthen the formation. In a certain wasteland, two people were slowly walking on the wasteland. These two people were Nan Wu from the realm of Western Paradise and Nan Chu from the godly kingdom of Shumi. After walking for an unknown amount of time, the two suddenly stopped. At this moment, the sky above their heads had darkened and their surroundings had become incomparably gloomy. A few dozen feet in front of the two people, there was a stone tablet. On the stone tablet were 4 large words, "Do not approach." Chapter 1295. Strangers are not to enter. The Netherworld. Nan Chu looked at the stone tablet in front of him with a smile on his face. At this moment, their bodies began to rot. Nan Chu frowned and hurriedly pressed his hands forward. An invisible force vibrated in front of him. Nan Wu hastily put his palms together and a ball of Buddhist light enveloped him. But it was useless. Their bodies were still rotting away. Nan Chu hurriedly looked towards the Yin realm. The Tao stone has appeared. It's in the Yang realm. At this moment, a strange shadow suddenly appeared in front of them, and the shadow was holding a blood-red chain in its hand. A self-release realm expert. Moreover, it was a true self-release. Southern Chu hurriedly said, "The Tao Stone has appeared. It's in the world of the living." He knew that the only things that could move the Yin realm were the Tao Stones and the Tao Scriptures. The status of the Tao Stone in the netherworld was even higher than the Tao Scripture. The shadow said hoarsely, "The Yang realm?" Nanchu nodded. "Yes." The shadow quietly retreated. Nanchu frowned and looked at Nan Wu. Nan Wu remained silent. At this moment, the space in front of them suddenly trembled. Then the shadow from before appeared again. There was also a middle-aged man who appeared with him. The middle-aged man's body was illusory. He had a corporeal body, but it was very strange because the two of them could not sense the middle-aged man's existence. The middle-aged man glanced at Nan Wu. "Buddha realm." Nan Wu put his palms together and bowed slightly. "Sir, how is my Grandmaster Nanzang Bodhisattva?" The middle-aged man nodded slightly. "Good day, Bodhisattva Nanzang." As he spoke, he looked towards Southern Chu. "The Daosher is in the Yang realm?" Nanchu nodded. "Yes, I saw it with my own eyes. She's following a youth right now." The middle-aged man narrowed his eyes. Did she recognize that youth as her master? Nanchu thought for a moment and said, "I don't know. However, she is very close to that young man. Their relationship is not simple." The middle-aged man frowned. After a short moment, the middle-aged man said, "The two of you came here to tell us about this?" Nanchu continued, "Not only has the Taoist stone appeared, the Taoist scripture has also appeared." Tao scriptures. The middle-aged man looked at Southern Chu. "Also in that youth's hands?" Nanchu nodded. "Yes." After a moment of silence, the middle-aged man said, "Can the two of you get the Tao stone and the Tao scripture for us?" Nanchu shook his head. "There is a woman by the youth's side. Her strength has already corroborated the Tao. The two of us are no match for her." The middle-aged man said softly, "Looks like we can only go there ourselves." Nanchu glanced at his body that was still corroding. Just as he was about to speak, the middle-aged man said, "The two of you have already stepped into the netherworld. The yin energy here isn't something the two of you can withstand. Retreat 100 feet. The two of them hurriedly retreated 100 zhang away. After retreating 100 zhang, their bodies were no longer corroded. Only then did the two of them realize that there was a red line in front of them. This was the Tao world that separated the Yin realm and the Yang realm. Those from the netherworld couldn't cross over, and those from the mortal realm couldn't cross over either. At this time, the middle-aged man and the shadow had already disappeared. Nanchu said softly, "Looks like they intend to find a way to break through this Tao world." As soon as he finished speaking, the blood-red line in front of them suddenly started to tremble. The ground and mountains around them gradually shook and space started to crack. Right at this moment, their expressions changed drastically because their bodies had started to corrode again. The two of them hurriedly retreated explosively while a shadow spread towards the heavens and the earth around them, and the heavens and the earth started to corrode. At this moment, the heavens and the earth in an area of millions of kilometers started to corrode bit by bit, and the entire world was filled with boundless yin energy. Nearby, the blood-red line suddenly trembled violently, and then a ray of red light shot into the sky. In an instant, the yin energy vanished without a trace. At the same time, the shadow in the heavens and the earth retreated repeatedly, and it didn't take long for them to retreat into the netherworld. But at this moment, four people stood in front of the two of them. The person in the lead was the middle-aged man from before, and there were three others by his side. These three people were all true self-release realm powerhouses. The middle-aged man turned to look at the Tao world and said softly, "What a powerful Tao world. If it wasn't for Gehenna King, we really wouldn't have been able to come out." Nanchu said in a deep voice, "Your Excellency, that youth has a Tao validation expert by his side. In his opinion, just these four people from the netherworld might not be enough." The middle-aged man looked at Nanchu. "It's fine. Lead the way." Nanchu hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Just like this, the few of them disappeared at the end of the horizon. 2 hours later. In the five-dimensional universe. Dao Sanxing, who was preaching, suddenly raised her head. The next moment she disappeared on the spot and rushed to Yi Xian's room. She looked at Yi Xian, who had a face full of shock. "They're here." Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. "The netherworld?" Dao Sanxing nodded. "Yes." Yi Xian said, "Let's go." With that he left the room with Dao Sanxing. In another room, Yi Jiming put down the ancient book in her hand. She looked up and said softly, "So fast." In the starry sky, the middle-aged man looked down. "I can already feel her." There was a trace of excitement in his voice. At this moment, the middle-aged man suddenly raised his head. In the distant starry sky, a woman was looking at him. The middle-aged man smiled. As expected of a Tao validation expert. Interesting. As he said that, he opened his palm and a black chain suddenly flew out. Then, it steadily landed in front of a man beside him. Tong, use this to imprison that stone later. I'll go meet this woman. Oh yes, get that Tao scripture too. After saying that, he disappeared. At this moment, Yi Xian and Dao Sanxing suddenly appeared in front of Tong and the others. Nan Chu glanced at Yi Xian without saying a word. Nan Wu put his palms together and closed his eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. Tong ignored Yi Xian and looked at Dao Sanxing. Are you going back with me or do I have to force you to go back with me? Dao Sanxing was expressionless. She looked at the black chain with a solemn expression. Yi Xian asked, "What's that?" Dao Sanxing said in a deep voice, "It's a treasure of the underworld, the soul-binding chain. It contains the Tao law of the master of the underworld. Even a Tao validation expert can't break free once he's locked up." With that, she paused for a moment and continued, "There's also my Tao imprint on it. I can't resist this soul-binding chain." Hearing this, Yi Xian understood. This thing was a natural counter to Dao Sanxing. This time, the underworld had come prepared. At this moment, Tong suddenly said, "Looks like I have to force you to go back with me." With that, he was about to attack. At this moment, he seemed to have thought of something and suddenly looked at Yi Xian. "I heard that you have the Tao scripture." Yi Xian nodded. "Yes." Tong spread out his hand. "Give it to me." Yi Xian was not angry at Tong's reasonable tone. Instead, he smiled and said, "Why should I give it to you?" Tong chuckled. "I'm asking for it because I think highly of you. You should feel honored." Yi Xian roared with laughter. As soon as he finished laughing, he'd vanished on the spot. At the moment he vanished, both Nan Chu and Nan Wu's expressions changed drastically. Release 1. A true release 1. At this moment, their eyes were filled with disbelief. Because they hadn't expected that Yi Xian had actually attained true release 1. As for Tong, his pupils constricted at the moment Yi Xian vanished. The reason he was shocked was because he hadn't sensed Yi Xian's realm just now. Nan Chu had told him that Yi Xian was at most a false release 1. The difference between a false release 1 and a true release 1 was like the difference between the heavens and the earth. Moreover, he'd overlooked something. Yi Xian was a swordsman and a swordsman who'd attained the sword transformation realm. To a certain extent, the sword transformation realm was equivalent to the Tao validation realm. He'd underestimated his opponent. At the moment Yi Xian attacked, this thought appeared in Tong's mind. He wanted to resist, but it was too late because he'd lost the initiative and wasn't prepared. Most importantly, he hadn't expected that Yi Xian would attack without a word. Shouldn't there be some foreplay? Under everyone's gazes, Yi Xian's sword accurately pierced through Tong's forehead. Death in one strike. Tong looked at Yi Xian in a daze. At this moment, he realized that he hadn't underestimated his opponent, but he'd greatly underestimated his opponent. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly smiled. "Killing you is your honor." He paused for a moment before continuing, "Pardon me for asking, but how do you feel right now?" Killing wasn't enough, he still wanted to destroy the heart. Tong looked at Yi Xian without saying a word. His body became more and more illusory. Yi Xian smiled. "I wanted to have a chat with you, but your high and mighty appearance is really annoying. If I don't kill you, I won't be able to forgive myself." As he spoke, he opened his palm. The soul-binding chain in Tong's hand that hadn't come into play yet flew directly into his hand. Yi Xian sized up the soul-binding chain and then smiled. "Your Excellency, you should have come, but you still had to give me such a big gift. You're making me feel embarrassed." Tong stared at Yi Xian. "Do you think you've won?" Yi Xian smiled. "I don't know if I'll win. I only know that you're already dead." As he spoke, he opened his palm and the soul-suppressing sword directly entered Tong's body. Boom. In an instant, Tong's soul was directly absorbed. At this moment, Nan Chu suddenly turned around and ran. They'd underestimated Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian was no longer a match for them. At this moment he stopped. In front of him stood a woman. It was Arrow. In the distance Yi Xian suddenly said, "Arrow, don't kill him. Leave him alive. I have use for him." Arrow nodded, then directly drew his sword and rushed towards Nan Chu. On the other side Yi Xian looked at Nan Wu, who was in the realm of ultimate bliss. Nan Wu clasped his hands together. "Young Master Yi, this old monk is just passing by." "Really?" Yi Xian smiled. Master, rest assured. Buddha is merciful. I won't kill you. Nan Wu immediately heaved a sigh of relief. At this moment, a sword suddenly pierced his forehead. Blood splattered. Nan Wu looked at Yi Xian with eyes full of disbelief. Young Master Yi, didn't you say you won't kill me? Yi Xian smiled. Seeing how mischievous you are, I also want to be mischievous. Nan Wu. P.S. Actually, because of the books, I've read a lot of Buddhist scriptures recently. The biggest gain from reading Buddhist scriptures is that I feel that I'm getting more and more handsome. Chapter 1296. Yi Xian pressed his fingers together and guided lightly, causing the soul-suppressing sword to directly enter Nan Wu's body. In an instant, Nan Wu's soul was directly absorbed. His soul was obliterated. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the soul-suppressing sword fell into his hand. The soul-suppressing sword trembled slightly as if it was very excited. Yi Xian looked at the two remaining experts from the nether realm in the distance. At this moment, their expressions were extremely vigilant. Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. A strand of sword light tore through the battlefield. At the instant Yi Xian vanished, the two experts from the nether realm vanished on the spot as well. 1 against 2. As soon as they fought, Yi Xian directly suppressed the two experts from the nether realm. The swordsman. Under normal circumstances, a swordsman's combat strength was much higher than an ordinary person in the same realm of cultivation, and Yi Xian wasn't an ordinary swordsman. Sword lights crisscrossed in the battlefield, and the two experts from the nether realm were forced to retreat repeatedly. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly stopped, and he allowed one of the experts from the nether realm to smash his body with a punch. That punch contained extremely enormous energy of death and yin energy. Besides that, there was also some strange energy. The expert from the nether realm was instantly stunned when he saw Yi Xian suddenly give up on defense, and a strand of uneasiness arose in his heart. However, he was unable to retreat at this moment. Bang! When the expert's punch smashed onto Yi Xian's chest, Yi Xian's sword swept across the expert's throat. Yi Xian retreated over 30 m while the expert's head flew into the air. Fresh blood sprayed out like a fountain from the expert's neck, and it was extremely bloody. Yi Xian didn't have any of those flashy moves now. He would use whatever move was the most practical. Killing was his final objective. After Yi Xian stopped, he looked at his body. The energy of death and yin energy on his chest had been absorbed by his body. Could be absorbed. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly. It seemed that his immortal body was equally effective against the experts of the underworld. Impossible. Not far away, the other expert from the netherworld stared fixedly at Yi Xian, his eyes filled with disbelief. Yi Xian had just received a punch from a self-release realm expert and he was fine. Physical body. That expert from the netherworld looked at Yi Xian and was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly vanished from where he was. In the distance, the pupils of that expert from the yin realm constricted abruptly, and then he suddenly slapped his right palm forward. In an instant, the space in front of him had directly transformed into a deathly silent area, and this deathly silent area was filled with boundless death chi and yin energy. As for Yi Xian, he directly rushed into the deathly still land. The deathly aura and nether aura did not hinder his footsteps. On the contrary, he directly absorbed all of the nether aura and deathly aura. Moments later, a sword flashed past the throat of that netherworld expert. The yin expert's head flew into the air, and almost at the same time, Yi Xian's soul-subduing sword stabbed into the yin expert's neck. His divine soul was completely destroyed. Yi Xian turned around and walked in front of Dao Sansheng. He handed the black chain to Dao Sansheng. This is for you. Dao Sansheng glanced at Yi Xian. You can use this to trap me. Yi Xian smiled. I know. Dao Sansheng frowned. He was puzzled. Then give it back to me? Yi Xian rolled his eyes at Dao Sansheng. You are my military advisor and my friend. Why would I trap you? Dao Sansheng looked at Yi Xian. Do you see me as a friend? Yi Xian smiled. Yes. Dao Sansheng fell silent. She had very few friends. No, apart from that one in the netherworld, she had no other friends. Yi Xian suddenly smiled. Have you never been friends with humans? Dao Sansheng nodded. Yi Xian chuckled. Then you can give it a try. Dao Sansheng nodded. All right. Yi Xian continued, you were talking about the Dao imprint inside. I'll give it to you now. You can do whatever you want with it. As he spoke, he placed the chain in Dao Sansheng's hand and looked up into the sky. There was a trace of worry in his eyes. That middle-aged man was a Dao validation expert. Could Sister Nian deal with him? Yi Xian was a little worried. He turned into a beam of sword light and disappeared. Seeing this, Dao Sanxing hurriedly followed. In the starry sky, Moon Yin was sitting casually on a wooden stool with a campfire in front of her. Starry sky grilled fish. Actually, this scene was a little strange. The middle-aged man from the netherworld was sitting opposite Moon Yin. He looked at Moon Yin and smiled. "You're the Dao validation expert." Moon Yin glanced at him and smiled. "Did the netherworld send you?" The middle-aged man smiled. "Isn't that enough?" As he spoke, he glanced at his surroundings and chuckled softly. "To be honest, the mortal realm is very weak right now." Moon Yin smiled. "They are indeed very weak. To be honest, I don't want to be enemies with you." "Enemies?" The middle-aged man shook his head. "Let me correct you. You're not qualified to be enemies with the netherworld. People like you might be able to proclaim themselves as kings in the Yang realm, but in my netherworld you're really insignificant. My words might be offensive, but that's the truth." Moon Yin blinked. "Am I that weak?" The middle-aged man smiled calmly. "It's not that you're weak, but we're too strong." Moon Yin gave him a thumbs up. "You're really arrogant." The middle-aged man smiled. "But you can't do anything to me." Moon Yin shook her head. "Actually, if I were you, I would send someone to investigate Yi Xian and me, and investigate the ins and outs of everything. But you didn't do that. Why didn't you do that? Because you're confident. In your heart, you think the netherworld is stronger than the Yang realm, so you came here with a sense of superiority. Do you know? There's a saying in humans that, the biggest enemy is yourself. I think this saying is very reasonable. Many people die not because they have to die but because they seek death." The middle-aged man smiled. "Come, make your move. Let me regret it." Moon Yin smiled. She gently pulled out a fishbone from the grilled fish, and the next moment the fishbone turned into a sword light and disappeared. The sword light was silent, like a wisp of smoke. And at this moment the middle-aged man's smile froze. The sword. A myriad of thoughts flashed through the middle-aged man's mind. He knew that he had underestimated the enemy. He had underestimated the enemy and lost the initiative. However, he was a Dao vindication expert. Even if he had underestimated the enemy, he would not have been killed in one blow. The middle-aged man slowly raised his right hand, and then pointed a finger, which directly touched the sword light. There were no energy fluctuations. This was a silent contest. But soon the outcome was decided. The sword light suddenly pierced through the middle-aged man's finger, and then entered his body through his hand. The middle-aged man's body stiffened, and he looked at Moon Yin in a daze. "How is this possible? You can't kill me? I fused with the great Dao." Moon Yin rolled her eyes at the middle-aged man. "If fusing with the great Dao makes you invincible, then what's the point of breaking through the Dao?" The middle-aged man's pupils suddenly contracted, and he said in a trembling voice, You've reached the Dao vindication stage?" Moon Yin blinked. "Yes." The middle-aged man's expression suddenly became ferocious. "No. Absolutely impossible." Moon Yin sighed softly. "You remind me of someone." The middle-aged man stared at Moon Yin. "Who?" Moon Yin smiled. "A woman who never changes her clothes. When I first saw her, I was just as shocked as you are, and I thought it was impossible. Heavens, how could there be a woman stronger than me, Moon Yin, in this world? Moreover, her sword Dao is also stronger than mine. This is too tragic. Since she was born in a plain dress, why did she give birth to me, Moon Yin? Doesn't that make me feel bad? But I'm a bit better than you and I quickly accepted it. Why should we think that others can't do what we can't do?" The middle-aged man slowly closed his eyes. "There's someone stronger than you? Sir." The title had changed. Moon Yin pulled out a fish from somewhere and continued to roast it. "Do you know why I didn't die back then? Because I'm smarter than you. I didn't act high and mighty, I didn't think I was better than others, and I didn't carry that meaningless sense of superiority." She glanced at the middle-aged man, and the corners of her mouth curled up. "My modesty and low profile saved me. I've always believed that one should be humble and low profile. This may not bring you great benefits, but at least it won't bring you any harm." Then she turned her head to look at Yi Xian and Dao Sanxing, who were not far away. "I said that to you too." Yi Xian nodded quickly. "I'm very humble and I'm very low profile." Moon Yin smiled. "Slippery fellow." The middle-aged man suddenly said, "You've broken through your Dao, why are you still here?" Moon Yin glanced at the middle-aged man. "I haven't broken through my Dao." The middle-aged man narrowed his eyes. "That's impossible. If you hadn't broken through your Dao, you wouldn't have been able to kill me with one strike." Moon Yin smiled. I haven't broken through my Tao, but I have the ability to break through my Tao. Yi Xian glanced at Moon Yin, and he was extremely shocked. My God, this Sister Yin is too terrifying. In the distance, the middle-aged man glanced at Moon Yin, and his expression was complicated. In his opinion, there might be people in the Yang realm who could kill him, but there were very few of them. However, he had never thought that he would run into one. And it was so strong. The middle-aged man opened his palm, and the space in front of him suddenly trembled. He had to send this message back to the underworld, but his message disappeared as soon as it appeared. Not far away, Moon Yin smiled. I've calculated it. The underworld will definitely send more people, but they don't know how powerful I am. So, the people they send will most likely still be at the Tao-proving realm, but there will be a difference in the quantity and quality. Let me think. When she spoke up to here, she paused for a moment and said, they'll dispatch around 3 Tao corroboration realm experts at most, and I'll be able to kill them with ease. In this way, not only will we be able to buy some time, we'll even be able to exhaust the Tao corroboration realm experts of the netherworld. After killing these 3 Tao-proving experts, the underworld will definitely pay attention to it. At this time they will definitely send a heavyweight expert, and this heavyweight expert is likely to be in the half-step Tao-breaking realm, which is the limit of the Tao-proving realm. This kind of person won't be able to defeat me. In other words, we can buy some more time and make the underworld lose a heavyweight expert. He paused for a moment and then asked, may I ask, the underworld doesn't have a lot of Tao-proving realm experts and the half-step Tao-breaking realm experts, I guessed, right? If there are too many, I'll have to disguise myself and make you think I'm only at the Tao-proving realm and I'm injured. In this way, you will continue to underestimate the enemy and send more people to me. The middle-aged man looked at Moon Yin as if he was looking at a monster. Chapter 1297. Yi Xian also had a strange expression on his face. Sister Yin is too sinister. But I like it. At this time, the middle-aged man had completely disappeared. Even in his death, he could not send any news back. A Tao-confirming expert had fallen. Moon Yin picked up the grilled fish in front of her and smelled it. An intoxicated smile appeared on her face. Smells so good. Yi Xian hurriedly ran in front of Moon Yin and flattered her. Sister Yin is invincible. Moon Yin glanced at Yi Xian. Invincible? Yi Xian hurriedly nodded. Yes. In my heart, Sister Yin is invincible. Moon Yin's lips curled up. What about that plain-dressed woman? In your heart, between me and her, who is more powerful? Yi Xian grinned. Qing is invincible in the heavens. Sister Yin is invincible in the mortal world. Both of you are invincible. Moon Yin laughed heartily. What a crafty fellow. Yi Xian sat in front of Moon Yin and took out 2 fish to grill. Sister Yin, you should already know about the recent events in the 5th dimension. Do you have any thoughts? Moon Yin smiled. Are you talking about the matter of you gathering those self-release realm experts? Yi Xian nodded. Moon Yin was silent. Yi Xian glanced at Moon Yin. Sister Yin, you can say whatever you think. Moon Yin licked the grilled fish in her hand and said, the human heart is the most unpredictable and fickle. These people are very obedient now because of you, but this does not mean that they will be obedient forever. The moment you cannot satisfy their demands, they will immediately change their attitude. Do you understand what I mean? Yi Xian nodded. I understand. Moon Yin smiled and said, you were able to use this scripture to attract these people to your side. This is very good. If the prophet had made the same choice back then, his Yi family wouldn't have had such a thing happen. Of course, he lacked an innate condition and that was no one to protect him. At that time, he didn't possess the strength to negotiate with those people. Yi Xian was silent. He knew that these people had come to rely on him because they could not do anything to him. Moon Yin continued, however, in the end he still died because he cared too much about the scriptures. Yi Xian said solemnly, Sister Yin, I've already obtained 4 scriptures. Do you want to see it? Moon Yin shook his head. I'm not interested. Yi Xian was puzzled. Why? Moon Yin smiled but said nothing. Yi Xian understood. Because Moon Yin no longer needed it. Moon Yin suddenly said, I want to go to a place. Yi Xian looked at Moon Yin. Moon Yin stood up and stretched. I'm going to a distant place to do some things I want to do. As for the 5th dimension, I'll leave it to you for the time being. Yi Xian said solemnly, will you come back? Moon Yin nodded. I will. However, I won't be coming back for some time. From now on, you will have to face everything in the 5th dimension by yourself. Do you understand what I mean? Yi Xian nodded. I understand. Moon Yinyan lightly patted Yi Xian's shoulder. To be a swordsman you only need to understand the sword. However, to be the master of the universe you cannot only understand the sword. The underworld is currently your strongest enemy, but it is not your only enemy. After saying that, she turned and left. Yi Xian looked at Moon Yinyan. Just like that, under his gaze, Moon Yinyan went further and further away. At this time, Dao Sanxing suddenly said, "Is she not going to care?" Yi Xian smiled. She can help me for a while, but she cannot help me for a lifetime. I need to walk my own path from now on. After saying that, he turned and left. In fact, before coming to find Moon Yinyan, he wanted to have a fight with that Dao Vindication expert. With his current strength, an ordinary self-release expert was not his opponent. Therefore he wanted to find a Dao Vindication expert to fight and see where his limits were. What he did not expect was that when he found Moon Yinyan, that middle-aged man had already been killed in one strike. He actually wanted to find Moon Yinyan to fight, but he knew that if he did, he would only be beaten. Moon Yinyan was too strong. If he sparred with her, if she did not go easy on him, he would not have a chance at all. If she went easy on him, the sparring would be meaningless. Therefore he gave up on sparring with Sister Nian. At this time, Dao Sanxing suddenly ran to Yi Xian's side. The underworld is very strong. Yi Xian smiled. Didn't you say that they were not strong at all? Dao Sanxing's small face turned red. I lied. Yi Xian laughed. At this time, Arrow suddenly appeared in front of him. In Arrow's hand there was a person. It was Nanchu. But now Nanchu was only left with his soul, and this soul was incomplete. If Nanchu's main body was still here, perhaps Arrow could not do anything to him. But now Nanchu was not a match for Arrow at all. Nanchu looked at Yi Xian. You have opened the Dao scripture. Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Nanchu laughed at himself. It's funny that we thought you were just a fake. Yi Xian smiled. I want to ask you a question. Nanchu stared at Yi Xian. You want to know the location of the underworld? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Nanchu smiled. I will tell you. As he spoke, he opened his palm and a small map appeared in his palm. Yi Xian glanced at the map and made a mental note of it. Nanchu suddenly said, Do you know why I want to tell you? Yi Xian looked at Southern Chu and said with a smile, You want me to go to them and then use them to kill me? Nanchu laughed. Yi Xian, you are very smart. But you underestimate the underworld. You can't imagine how powerful they are. Although I, Nanchu, will die today, but you, Yi Xian, will not live for long. Not only you, Yi Xian, but everyone in the five-dimensional universe will not live. There is also that Moon Yinyan. The underworld will retaliate against her, and her fate will definitely be very miserable. Towards the end, his voice was filled with resentment. He did not beg for mercy. This was because he knew that Yi Xian would not let him off. He was already prepared to die. Yi Xian suddenly opened his palm and a scroll appeared in his hand. It was the Variables Dao scripture. He opened the scroll and faced it towards Nanchu. When Nanchu saw the contents of the Dao scripture, he felt as if he had been struck by lightning and stood rooted to the ground. Nanchu looked at Yi Xian. His throat trembled as he said in a trembling voice, This is the Dao scripture? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Quickly take a closer look. Nanchu promptly nodded. He looked at the Dao scripture, and as he looked, his soul began to tremble. At this moment, Southern Chu was like a person on the verge of death in a desert who had suddenly seen an oasis. Oh. Nanchu had once been in the Dao confirming realm. Of course, that was not true Dao confirming realm. He was not even a true self-release. In the past, he also wanted to be a true self-release, a true Dao confirming realm. Unfortunately, without the Dao scripture, he could not do it. This was also the reason why he immediately seized the body of Yi Xian to be reborn after learning that he had the Dao scripture. And now he finally saw the Dao scripture. All the doubts in his heart were suddenly cleared up at this moment. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, I still have a Dao scripture. After saying this, he took out the Fate Dao scripture and opened it to show it to Nanchu. Nanchu looked at the Fate Dao scripture, his mind completely blank. Another Dao scripture. Heavens! He had actually seen 2 Dao scriptures. This happiness had come too suddenly. Nanchu did not think too much about it and hastily looked at the Dao scripture. Nanchu eagerly looked at it. At this moment he was so excited that he was about to go crazy. The Dao scripture was very short, so Nanchu quickly finished reading it. At this moment, Nanchu's entire person was boiling. At this moment Yi Xian put away the 2 Dao scriptures. Then he took out the soul-suppressing sword and placed it against Nanchu's chest. Nanchu looked at Yi Xian in disbelief. What are you doing? Yi Xian smiled and said, what do you think? After saying this, he began to slowly exert force. The soul-suppressing sword slowly entered Nanchu's body. This time, the soul-suppressing sword did not directly absorb Nanchu's soul. Instead, it slowly absorbed it. Sensing that his soul was slowly being devoured, Nanchu finally panicked. Nanchu immediately knelt down. Young Master Yi, don't kill me, I don't want to die. Originally, he had already prepared himself to die, but now he did not want to die. He had just read 2 Tao scriptures. As long as he had time, he would definitely break through. At this moment, he only wanted to live. What dignity, what backbone, all of it was fleeting clouds at this moment. Yi Xian did not speak, but his sword still entered Nanchu's soul bit by bit. Nanchu frantically begged, young Master Yi, don't kill me. As long as you don't kill me, I'm willing to be your slave. Please don't kill me. Yi Xian still did not speak. At this moment, his soul-suppressing sword had already entered Nanchu's soul. Seeing that Yi Xian had made up his mind to kill, Nanchu suddenly roared, Yi Xian, you're so cruel, ah! His voice was heart-wrenching and shook the starry sky. The cruelest thing in the world was when a desperate person saw hope, and then this hope was followed by despair. Nanchu had never experienced such great ups and downs in his entire life of cultivation. Soon, the soul-suppressing sword completely absorbed Nanchu's despair, roar, and resentment. Nanchu was completely gone. Unlike the beginning, Nanchu did not leave peacefully. He left very unwillingly, extremely unwillingly, but he had no choice but to leave. Despair. Unwillingness. Most people could not understand Nanchu's feelings when he left. Dao Sanxing glanced at Yi Xian but did not speak. Yi Xian smiled, do you think I'm cruel? Dao Sanxing shook his head, I don't think you're cruel enough. I should have let him see the 3 lives art. That way he would have left even more unwillingly. Yi Xian blinked, I didn't think of that. Dao Sanxing continued, you should have pretended to forgive him and let him think that he could live. Then, you let him cultivate halfway and then kill him like you did just now. He would have been even more unwillingly. Yi Xian slapped his forehead, I didn't think of that. I'm too merciful. Dao Sanxing glanced at Yi Xian, what should we do next? Yi Xian smiled, settle the score. P.S. I recommend the new book by the great Master Ji by Unyielding Empire. Those who like history should check it out. You won't be disappointed. Chapter 1298. Settle the score. Although Nanwu and Southern Chu had fallen, the godly kingdom of Shumi and the realm of Pure Land still existed. Yi Xian's first choice was the godly kingdom of Shumi. Yi Xian only brought Dao Sanxing with him. The 2 of them arrived in front of the universe barrier. Yi Xian looked at the universe barrier before him and slashed out with his sword. The barrier was sliced open. Yi Xian smiled. In the past, he needed Sister Nian's help to go to the godly kingdom of Shumi. But now he could do it easily. Yi Xian led Dao Sanxing through the barrier. In less than a quarter of an hour, the 2 arrived at the main city of the godly kingdom of Shumi. Just as they arrived above the city, a white-haired old man appeared in front of Yi Xian and Dao Sanxing. This man was the current divine lord of the godly kingdom of Shumi. Countless experts from the godly kingdom of Shumi surrounded them. The white-haired old man looked at Yi Xian. What do you want now? Yi Xian was surprised. Don't you know about the 5th dimension? The white-haired old man frowned. What's the 5th dimension? Yi Xian understood. It was obvious that Nanchu and Nanwu had gone to the 5th dimension immediately after returning to the world of the living. Those who went to the 5th dimension had all died, so the news did not leak out. After all, the Tao world and the 6th dimension were almost all Yi Xian's people. Who would dare to report to the realm of Pure Land and the godly kingdom of Shumi? The white-haired old man suddenly said, Yi Xian, you won't be so arrogant for long. Yi Xian looked at the white-haired old man and smiled. Why do you say that? The white-haired old man sneered and did not speak. Yi Xian smiled. Let me guess. Your ancestor must have gone to the netherworld to invite experts to deal with me. Am I right? The white-haired old man's eyes narrowed. How did you know? Yi Xian said seriously, didn't I say it? I guessed it. The white-haired old man stared at Yi Xian. Yi Xian, do you know how scary the underworld is? Let me tell you, if you are smart, you should immediately hand over that scripture. That way you can still protect yourself. Otherwise, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared on the spot. The white-haired old man's head flew off. Blood gushed out like a fountain. Instant kill. All the experts from the godly kingdom of Shumi were shocked. He was insta-killed just like that? Yixian suddenly looked at Dao Sansheng and said, "In this city, no one above the Gui Yuan breaking realm will be spared." Dao Sansheng hesitated for a moment and said, "Why don't we slaughter the entire city?" Yixian laughed, "No." Dao Sansheng frowned. "What?" Yixian smiled, "I want to send people to take over this godly kingdom of Shumi." Dao Sansheng came to an understanding upon hearing this. Soon both of them disappeared on the spot. Not long after, screams of agony resounded in the city. Surrender? Yixian did not even consider it because he did not need it. In less than a quarter of an hour, all the top experts of the godly kingdom of Shumi were killed, and their heads were hung on the city walls. In an instant, everyone in the godly kingdom of Shumi felt insecure. Inside the palace, Yixian walked into a grand hall with a sword in hand. Behind him were two old men, both self-release realm experts. Inside the hall, Yixian saw a young man about 16 or 17 years old. Beside him was a little girl about 14 or 15 years old. The young man held the little girl's hand tightly, both were afraid. Yixian looked at the young man. "You are the prince of the godly kingdom of Shumi?" The young man nodded. Although he looked calm, Yixian knew that this young man was faking it. Yixian pointed at the little girl. "She is your sister?" The young man nodded. "Yes." His voice was trembling. Yixian smiled. "Do you think I will kill you?" The young man looked at Yixian. "I will. Because I want to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots." Yixian smiled. "I know a lot." The young man hesitated, then said, "Just kill me and let my sister go, is that okay?" Yixian looked at the young man, snickering. "You're playing dirty tricks with me." Being seen through by Yixian, the young man's face tightened. Yixian suddenly said, "I can give your sister a chance to live, but you must die." Saying so, he pointed a finger and a sword fell in front of the young man. Yixian smiled. "If you are willing to commit suicide, I can let your sister live." The young man glared at Yixian. "This is not fair." Yixian shook his head. "You are not qualified to talk to me about what is fair. You can only choose to do it or not." The young man looked at the sword in front of him, his body trembling. At this moment, the little girl suddenly picked up the sword. She looked at Yixian and said with a trembling voice, "I can choose too, right?" Yixian nodded. The little girl suddenly took the sword and slashed it towards her throat. Very decisive. Without a trace of hesitation. However, the sword stopped at her throat. The little girl was stunned and then she fell to the ground. It could be imagined how much courage she used to commit suicide with the sword. Yixian walked in front of the little girl. He picked up the sword and smiled. "I don't want to play with human nature, I just want to see if he is a qualified brother. Obviously he is not." Saying so, he pointed a finger and a sword ray entered the little girl's forehead. Yixian smiled. "This is my gift to you." Saying so, he stood up and left. The little girl suddenly said, Shouldn't you kill them all?" Yixian smiled. "I'm not afraid of your revenge." The little girl looked at Yixian. "We can't defeat you, but what about your descendants? Aren't you afraid we'll make trouble for them?" Yixian laughed. "If my descendants are strong, why should I worry? If they aren't strong, it's none of my business, I don't want to worry." With that said, he left the great hall. Inside the great hall, the young man breathed a sigh of relief, but the little girl sighed softly. She knew that this kind of person was not someone they could take revenge on. Revenge? In their world, Yixian had slaughtered the godly kingdom of Shumi's imperial family. He was their enemy. But that man wasn't afraid of them taking revenge. Outside the great hall, Dao Sansheng looked inside the great hall, then asked, "Shall we go to the realm of bliss now?" Yixian nodded. He looked around, then said, "Sansheng, from now on, the godly kingdom of Shumi is ours. What do you think?" Dao Sansheng was silent. Yixian noticed that ever since the people of the underworld appeared, Sansheng's smile had lessened. He was no longer as mischievous. Yixian lightly patted Sansheng's shoulder. "Don't think too much, I'll protect you." Dao Sansheng rolled his eyes at Yixian. "You need someone to protect you." Yixian laughed. "Let's go to the realm of bliss." With that said, the two disappeared from the great hall. Not long after, the people of the fifth dimension came to take over the godly kingdom of Shumi. Everything went smoothly because those who had the ability to resist were all dead. The news of the godly kingdom of Shumi's imperial family being massacred spread like wildfire. Even the experts of the fifth dimension were shocked. Yixian annihilated the godly kingdom of Shumi's imperial family. At this moment, besides shock, there was also fear in many people's hearts. Yi Xian had a benevolent heart, but he also had the means of an Azura. Not long after, Dao Village Chief Li Er suddenly brought the experts of the Dao Village to the fifth dimension. They did not come to cause trouble, they came to seek refuge. After knowing that the godly kingdom of Shumi had been destroyed, the Dao Village was also afraid. They were afraid that Yi Xian would cause trouble for the Dao Village, so they directly came to seek refuge. At this time there was no need to wait and see. However, the status of the Dao Village was far from the Immortal Pavilion. Jiang Yu still had a very high status in the fifth dimension, and he also had a lot of power. Moreover, Guan Yin had allowed him to enter the Council of Elders. However, the Dao Village did not have such treatment. It could be said that the treatment of the Dao Village in the fifth dimension was extremely good, but they did not dare to have the slightest objection. The Realm of Bliss. Yi Xian and Dao Sanxing arrived at the entrance of the Realm of Bliss. What surprised Yi Xian was that the entrance to the Realm of Bliss was sealed. Needless to say, the Realm of Bliss definitely knew that he was coming. Yi Xian suddenly unsheathed his sword and slashed. The enchantment of the Realm of Bliss shattered. At this time, a monk suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. It was an old acquaintance. It was Bodhisattva Mi. Bodhisattva Mi glanced at Yi Xian with a complicated expression. Young Master Yi, the godly kingdom of Shumi is gone. Am I right? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Bodhisattva Mi put his palms together. Young Master Yi, I have something to ask. I hope young Master Yi can answer truthfully. Yi Xian smiled. Ask away. Bodhisattva Mi stared at Yi Xian. Namo Buddhist ancestor and the Southern Chu Emperor brought experts from the underworld to the fifth dimension, but they all died. Am I right? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Bodhisattva Mi slowly closed his eyes. In fact, he had already guessed it. However, at this moment when he heard that Yi Xian had returned, he was extremely shocked. A Dao validation expert must have come from the underworld and such an expert had died. What did this mean? It meant that Yi Xian and Moon Yanyan's strength was several times more terrifying than they had imagined. Thinking of this, Bodhisattva Mi felt powerless. He looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, from now on, my realm of bliss will no longer interfere in worldly matters. We will never be enemies with young Master Yi. Young Master Yi, what do you think? The corner of Yi Xian's mouth lifted. What do you think I, Yi Xian, am? I can fight whenever I want and I can't fight whenever I want? Bodhisattva Mi smiled bitterly. Young Master Yi, why do you have to be so ruthless? Yi Xian shook his head. When I was weak, how did Master and Realm of Bliss treat me? If I, Yi Xian, lose, I believe that Realm of Bliss will definitely be ruthless. So, having said that, he disappeared on the spot. Bodhisattva Mi's pupils shrank. He clasped his hands together and caught a sword. However, the next moment, the sword pierced his throat. Bodhisattva Mi's eyes widened. Blood spurted from his throat. Meanwhile, Yi Xian was already in front of Bodhisattva Mi. Yi Xian looked at Bodhisattva Mi and smiled. Master, do you know what's the funniest thing in the world? It's those people who claim to be merciful but commit evil deeds. What's even funnier is that after those people realize that they can't do evil, they question why do they have to be so ruthless. Master, do you remember back then when I spoke to you about being merciful, righteous, and reasonable, how did you treat me? Saying those things to me is useless. You just want to snatch my things and you want to do it in a dignified manner. Now you want to talk to me about being merciful and righteous? Sorry, I won't. Chapter 1299. Benevolence? Benevolence? In Yi Xian's opinion, benevolence and benevolence depended on the person. Yi Xian would not be a good person. Yi Xian could not repay evil with good. After killing Venerable Mi, Yi Xian used the soul-suppressing sword to absorb his soul. The soul-suppressing sword had absorbed many powerful souls recently. At this moment, it showed signs of breaking through. Dao Sanxing suddenly said, if your sword absorbs the soul of the Lord of Underworld, it will definitely become the best sword in the Underworld and Yang World. Yi Xian looked at Dao Sanxing. The Lord of Underworld? Dao Sanxing nodded. Yes, that soul is one of the most powerful souls in the Underworld. It will definitely be a great supplement for your sword. Yi Xian blinked. Can I defeat the Lord of Underworld? Dao Sanxing hesitated, then said seriously, I think you should have a 50-50 chance. A 50-50 chance. Yi Xian walked in front of Dao Sanxing and patted his shoulder. Thank you for thinking so highly of me. But, is it really good to hurt your own people like this? Dao Sanxing. After the soul-suppressing sword absorbed Venerable Mi's soul, Yi Xian brought Dao Sansheng into the realm of ultimate bliss. At this time, the realm of ultimate bliss was already waiting. An old monk appeared in front of Yi Xian. The monk had an aged face and exuded a powerful aura. Dao Validation Realm. Of course, this Dao Validation Realm was worlds apart from the Dao Validation Realm in the underworld. Behind this old monk, there were dozens of super experts from the realm of bliss. All of them were at the self-release realm. It could be said that all the experts in the realm of ultimate bliss were here. The old monk looked at Yi Xian and put his palms together. Young Master Yi, you have won. Can you show mercy to the realm of ultimate bliss? Yi Xian smiled. Master, did you think of showing mercy to me back then? The old monk bowed slightly. Young Master Yi, we did not do anything to the fifth dimension. Yi Xian laughed. Don't you have any idea why you people from the Western Paradise realm went to the Netherworld to look for people to come to the Yang realm? The old monk fell silent. Yi Xian shook his head with a smile and slashed with his sword. The old monk suddenly said, Kill. As soon as he finished speaking, the surrounding monks charged towards Yi Xian and Dao Sansheng. However, how could they be a match for Yi Xian and Dao Sansheng? In next to no time, numerous shrill cries resounded. Massacre. In just a few breaths of time, over a dozen self-release realm experts had perished. At this moment, the old monk suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. He put his palms together and stretched out his palms. In an instant, a 10,000-meter tall Buddha appeared behind him. As the golden Buddha appeared, the entire realm of ultimate bliss began to tremble. Yi Xian gazed at the old monk with an emotionless expression, and the sword in his hand was ready to attack. The old monk didn't waste his breath at all. He just swung his palm. In an instant, a Buddha's palm that was over 1 kilometer long smashed down towards Yi Xian. The old monk suddenly sat down cross-legged behind the Buddha's palm, pressed his palms together and chanted silently. The energy contained within the Buddha's palm suddenly rose explosively. Everywhere it passed, space trembled violently as if it intended to crush the world into pieces. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly stabbed with his sword. A ray of light tore through the sky. It was a very ordinary attack. But the old monk's figure stiffened when he saw it. To outsiders, this sword seemed very ordinary, but to him, it seemed to possess endless transformations. The sword changed. Bang. The Buddha's palm was slashed into pieces, but the sword energy didn't disperse, and it continued forward towards the old monk. The old monk pressed his palms together. The huge golden Buddha behind him pressed its palms together, and then a ray of golden light enveloped the old monk. The sword arrived. Bang. The golden Buddha statue crumbled, and a ray of sword light pierced through the old monk's forehead. All the experts from the Buddhist school were stunned by this scene. He was instantly killed. Yi Xian walked in front of the old monk, and the old monk looked at Yi Xian in a daze. Young Master Yi has reached the true self-release realm. That attack just now was purely a suppression of realm. It wasn't just the suppression of Sword Dao realm, but also the suppression of one's own realm. Yi Xian nodded. Self-release realm. Hearing Yi Xian's words, the old monk felt relieved. He pressed his palms together. Young Master Yi, rumor has it that as long as you are a self-release realm expert, you can go to the fifth dimension, and young Master Yi is willing to share the Dao scripture. Yi Xian said, that isn't a rumor. In the fifth dimension, there are already several true self-release realm experts. The old monk was stunned, and then he smiled bitterly. Why bother? Why bother? At this moment he felt very complicated. What was the goal of the Western Paradise? Was that scripture? However, he hadn't expected that Yi Xian would really be willing to share the Dao scripture with others. If they knew this would happen, why would the Western Paradise make an enemy of Yi Xian? Being friends with Yi Xian would make that thing easy to obtain. However, the Western Paradise's arrogance and conceit had harmed them. Because in the beginning, the Western Paradise had never thought of reasoning with Yi Xian. In their opinion, Yi Xian had to hand over the book. Did the strong need to reason with the weak? Even the old monk felt that Yi Xian had to hand over the book. As for reasoning, Yi Xian didn't have the qualifications to reason with the Western Paradise. The old monk sighed. He glanced at the surroundings and said, Young Master Yi, can you be merciful and spare my Western Paradise this time? If young Master Yi is willing to show mercy, then all the monks of my Western Paradise are willing to submit to young Master Yi. Yi Xian shook his head. No. The old monk didn't understand. Young Master Yi, as far as I know, the Dao world has already joined your fifth dimension. Why are you willing to let the Dao world off but not the Western Paradise? Yi Xian said with a smile, because the Dao world surrendered to me before the Nether world came. But you guys didn't. You guys are waiting for the underworld to destroy me. That's the difference. He shook his head. Master, I only have one question. If you guys win, will you be merciful to me, Yi Xian? The old monk fell silent. Yi Xian suddenly turned to look at Dao Sanxing. Sanxing, why did you stop? Dao Sanxing shrugged. Aren't you guys chatting? Yi Xian smiled. We'll chat and you can kill. Remember, kill all the self-release realm experts here. Don't leave a single one alive. Dao Sanxing nodded and rushed out again. In front of Yi Xian, the old monk's body became more and more illusory. That sword had directly destroyed his divine soul. The current him was like the last radiance of a setting sun. The old monk put his palms together. Young Master Yi, perhaps your good deed today will be exchanged for good karma in the future. Yi Xian smiled. I know that your Buddhist sect still has super experts. It's said that there's an eminent monk in the underworld. But it doesn't matter. Since I, Yi Xian, dare to kill, I'm already prepared to be killed. The old monk looked at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Yi Xian suddenly smiled. Master, do you know why I'm telling you so much? The old monk shook his head. I don't know. Yi Xian smiled. I always thought that you would admit your mistake. But you didn't. Not only did you not, you even used your eminent monk in the underworld to threaten me. Saying that, he shook his head and smiled. Even in death, you didn't deny your Buddhist sect's actions. Instead, you always felt that I, Yi Xian, wasn't benevolent enough. You felt that I, Yi Xian, was too ruthless. Saying that, he put his palms together. Master, the Buddhist scriptures say, putting yourself in someone else's shoes is the heart of Buddha. But in my opinion, Master doesn't have a heart of Buddha. The old monk looked at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Yi Xian looked around and smiled. If someone stood out and said that the Buddhist sect was wrong before, I, Yi Xian, wouldn't mind letting them off. I, Yi Xian, don't mind letting the Buddhists off the hook. After all, I owe a senior monk a favor and I want to return the favor. Unfortunately, I don't have one. But from the beginning you all felt that I, Yi Xian, was cruel and that I, Yi Xian, was too ruthless. What a joke. How can you cultivate Buddhism like this? Cultivate your mother's sledgehammer. In this world, the strong didn't need to reason with the weak, and the weak didn't have the qualifications to reason with the strong. Because you were weak, others wouldn't care if you were reasonable or not. The old monk looked at Yi Xian and put his palms together. Young Master Yi, is it too late now? Yi Xian suddenly slashed with his sword. The old monk's soul disappeared without a trace. Yi Xian was so angry that he laughed. Is it too late to ask me? You're such a clown. Saying that, he rushed out with his sword. Soon, screams resounded in the realm of bliss. Yi Xian didn't show any mercy. All the super experts of the realm of bliss were killed. However, he didn't massacre the entire realm of bliss. About a quarter of an hour later, all the super experts of the realm of bliss were killed. Yi Xian held his sword. Behind him were more than 10 corpses of the experts of the realm of bliss. On the other side there were countless monks of the realm of bliss. These monks were all earth sovereigns and below. They didn't attack or escape because they knew that it was futile. All the monks sat cross-legged on the ground and silently recited scriptures. Beside Yi Xian, Dao Sanxing glanced at the monks. Should we kill them? Yi Xian didn't answer. He turned and walked to the front of a temple. Here, he obtained the fourth Tao scripture and the innumerable Buddha indestructible body. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian said, Pass down my order. Let the abbot of the ancient temple bring the monks to the realm of bliss. Behind him, the space trembled slightly. A black figure quietly retreated. In less than a quarter of an hour, the abbot of the ancient temple brought some monks to the realm of bliss. When they saw the miserable state of the realm of bliss, the faces of the abbot and the others turned ugly. At this moment, they were glad that they gave up on the Tao scripture and chose to be friends with Yi Xian. Otherwise, the ancient temple would have suffered a terrible fate. This young Master Yi had a benevolent heart, but he also had the means of an Asura. Yi Xian looked at the abbot of the ancient temple. Abbot, I want you to take over the realm of bliss. After you take over, Buddhism will be divided into two schools. One will be the Zen school, which focuses on cultivating Buddhism. The other will be the martial school, which focuses on cultivating longevity. The abbot clasped his hands together. Young Master Yi, don't worry. I will arrange it well. Yi Xian nodded slightly. He looked at the temple. Master, I, Yi Xian, owe you a favor. Now I will return it. After saying that, he turned and left. Killing all the earth sovereigns in the realm of bliss was revenge. Leaving the Buddha world's inheritance and rebuilding the order of Buddhism was to return the favor. Kindness was kindness, hatred was hatred. Right at this moment, the hall suddenly started trembling. It didn't take long for countless golden scriptures to fly out from within the hall, and then they converged towards Yixian like a river. P.S. I want to start a live stream and do a striptease. Chapter 1300. Golden Runes. Seeing these golden scriptures, Yixian was a little stunned. What is this? Soon the golden runes entered his body. Boom. A powerful aura suddenly swept out from his body, causing the surrounding space to tremble. Soon Yixian understood what this was. This was not only the power of Dharma, but also the Dharma inheritance of that senior monk. That senior monk devoted his life to researching Dharma and had a deep understanding of it. At this moment, that senior monk turned all his understanding of Dharma into scriptures and gifted them to him. In the same place, Yixian was silent for a long time before he bowed slightly. Grandmaster, thank you. After saying that, he turned around and left. The knowledge of Dharma was of great help to him, who had already cultivated the infinite Buddha indestructible body. After the abbot of the ancient temple took over the realm of ultimate bliss, he immediately began to reorganize. According to Yixian's instructions, the abbot divided the realm of ultimate bliss into the Zen sect and the martial sect. Those who liked Dharma could go to the Zen sect, while those who liked martial Tao could go to the martial sect. Of course, both could be learned, but there was a clear distinction between the primary and secondary. In short, the realm of ultimate bliss quickly regained its peace. This was because those who had the ability to resist were all dead. And the matter of the realm of ultimate bliss quickly spread throughout the universe. At this point, the realm of ultimate bliss, the Tao world, the godly kingdom of Shumi, and the sixth dimension were all under the rule of Yixian. And the strength of the fifth dimension was unprecedentedly strong. This was because the fifth dimension now had a true self-release realm expert. In the fifth dimension, somewhere in the starry sky, Yixian looked down and fell into deep thought. Was it over? No. From his point of view, this was just the beginning. Right now, there was still one biggest enemy, and that was the underworld. At this time, the underworld should already know about the death of the middle-aged man and the others. At this time, Yi Jiming suddenly appeared beside Yixian. She glanced at Yixian. Are you really willing to share the Tao scriptures with those people? Yixian collected his thoughts and looked at Yi Jiming. Smiling, he said, Aren't I already doing that? Why are you suddenly asking about this? Yi Jiming said in a deep voice, Of the people I know, anyone who obtains this scripture will keep it for themselves. You are the only one who is willing to share it with others. Yixian suddenly asked, Miss Yi, if I obtain the Tao scripture, will I definitely be able to reach the true release one realm? Yi Jiming shook his head. No, whether or not one can achieve true release still depends on oneself. It doesn't mean that those who have the Tao scriptures will definitely reach self-release. It can only be said that the Tao scriptures give those who have reached the limit a new path, and whether or not they can continue depends on themselves. Yixian nodded thoughtfully. I understand. Yi Jiming glanced at Yixian. If you don't share in this world, at least apart from a few places, you're the only one who is a true release one. Yixian laughed and said, I'm not afraid of others being stronger than me. Saying this, he looked down and said softly, I want to make the five-dimensional universe better, but I can't do it alone. I need more people to help me. Yi Jiming said indifferently, If you don't die, you will obtain more in the future. Everything in front of you, including this universe, is insignificant to you. Yixian laughed and asked, Miss Yi, do you have many friends? Yi Jiming's hand holding the ancient book tightened. After a moment of silence, she said, Currently, you're the only one. No, you can only be considered half. Yixian was puzzled. Why only half? Yi Jiming said indifferently, Guess. Yixian laughed. No matter what, I treat you as a friend. Yi Jiming sneered. You don't even know who I am and you treat me as a friend? Yixian blinked. Then who are you? Yi Jiming looked at Yixian and sneered. Trying to fool me? Yixian curled his lips as if thinking of something. He suddenly asked, Miss Yi, why don't you believe that I'm the son of the nine-dimensional plane? Yi Jiming was expressionless and did not speak. Yixian looked at Yi Jiming. Tell me honestly, do you know if there is a nine-dimensional universe? Yi Jiming nodded. There is no nine-dimensional universe. Yixian frowned. Why? Yi Jiming thought for a moment and said, I don't know how to tell you, but there is no nine-dimensional universe. Yixian asked again, Then what is the highest known world? Yi Jiming thought for a moment and said, It should be Dao Tum and Doubting. Dao Tum and Doubting? Yixian frowned. Not the whirling world. Yi Jiming shook his head. Yixian wanted to ask more, but Yi Jiming suddenly said, You're asking me this because you want to know if those forces will become your enemies, right? Yi Xian nodded. He has the Tao scripture, this thing is too troublesome. Yi Jiming continued, the power and use of the Tao scripture is far beyond your imagination. At present, no force can ignore the Tao scripture, especially a complete one. The Tao scripture is known as the origin of martial arts. Think about it, how valuable is it? Yi Xian said softly, I understand. Saying so, he looked towards the depths of the starry sky. Miss Yi, you're very knowledgeable, do you know of any holy healing items in this world? Yi Jiming said, the purple aura in your body. Yi Xian shook his head, this isn't that little guy's purple aura, it's not enough. Yi Jiming thought for a moment and said, there's an item in the netherworld called Yellow Springs Holy Water. This water is a holy item in the netherworld. Legend has it that as long as one's soul exists, even if it's just a strand of it, this water can bring one back from the dead. Although it might be an exaggeration, it's definitely effective in healing souls. Not only can it heal the soul, but it can also greatly strengthen it. Therefore this water is extremely precious. It's said that the Yellow Springs Holy River only produces one drop every 50,000 years. This thing's status in the netherworld is second only to the Tao Stone. Yi Xian nodded thoughtfully. Yi Jiming was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly said, Miss Yi, come with me to the netherworld. Yi Jiming immediately said, no. Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming, why? Yi Jiming said coldly, I don't want to be beaten. Saying so she turned and left. To the netherworld? Is this guy crazy? That place isn't a place humans can go. At this time Yi Xian quickly chased after Yi Jiming. Miss Yi, we're not going to the netherworld to fight. We're just going to take a look. Yi Jiming stopped and said coldly, then go by yourself. I'm not stopping you. Yi Xian smiled awkwardly, I'll be more at ease if you come with me. Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian, I don't want to go. Yi Xian quickly said, Miss Yi, just take it as accompanying me to relax. Yi Jiming took a deep breath and asked, why are you going to the netherworld? Yi Xian said seriously, to find the Tao scriptures. Didn't you say that there are 2 Tao scriptures in the netherworld? I'm going to find the Tao scriptures for you. Suddenly Yi Jiming bellowed, speak to me. Yi Xian smiled awkwardly. This girl isn't easy to fool. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, I don't want to sit here and wait for them to come. It's too passive. Yi Jiming said solemnly, you don't have the strength to fight them. Yi Xian smiled bitterly, but I can't just sit here and wait. Yi Jiming fell silent. Yi Xian thought for a moment then said, there are Tao scriptures in the netherworld. Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian, I know there are Tao scriptures in the netherworld, but do you know who has them? Yi Xian shook his head, I don't know. Yi Jiming was expressionless, one of them is in the hands of someone you can't defeat, and the other is in a place you can't go. Yi Xian frowned, then are we just going to wait here? Will the Tao scriptures come to us? Yi Jiming fell silent. Yi Xian said with a straight face, Miss Yi, I think we can give it a try. Yi Jiming said, you should focus on increasing your strength. Yi Xian smiled, will the netherworld give me time? Yi Jiming sighed. The netherworld will not give Yi Xian time. Yi Jiming said, you can ask Moon Yin Yin to come with us. Yi Xian smiled, Miss Yi, are you trying to hit on Sister Yin Yin? Yi Jiming was silent. She really didn't dare to hit on Moon Yin Yin, that woman was even more treacherous than Yi Xian. Thinking of this, she glanced at Yi Xian. At this moment she thought of a saying, if you aren't in the same family, don't marry into the same family. This pair of siblings are the best in the world. One is a big hoodwinker, the other a little hoodwinker. One is strong, the other is thick-skinned. Moon Yin Yin's strength and Yi Xian's shamelessness made them invincible. Yi Xian suddenly smiled, forget it. If Miss Yi doesn't want to go, then stay here. I'll go alone. Saying so he turned and left. Yi Jiming suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian, are you familiar with the netherworld? Yi Xian shook his head, not really, but I'll get used to it after a while. Yi Jiming shook his head, you're really a talent. Yi Xian, Yi Jiming suddenly said, I'll go with you. Yi Xian laughed and hugged Yi Jiming tightly, Miss Yi is the best. Yi Jiming stared at Yi Xian, don't hug me. Yi Xian said seriously, Miss Yi, I have a gift for you. Yi Jiming frowned, what is it? Yi Xian opened his palm and a wooden figurine appeared in his hand. The wooden figurine looked exactly like Yi Jiming. Yi Xian handed the wooden figurine to Yi Jiming, Miss Yi, this is for you. Yi Jiming glanced at the wooden figurine, her face expressionless, I don't want it. Yi Xian stuffed it into Yi Jiming's hand. Just take it as a souvenir. Yi Jiming snorted coldly, his face full of disdain. What souvenir do we have? Yi Xian smiled. Jiming, let's go to the nether world. Saying so he turned and left. Yi Jiming suddenly said, Can you call me Miss Yi? Yi Xian nodded. All right, Jiming. Yi Jiming took a deep breath, his anger not light. But what could he do to such a shameless person? Yi Jiming looked at the wooden figurine in her hand. She sneered, Such poor craftsmanship. Saying so, she kept the wooden figurine and disappeared from the scene. After Yi Xian settled the matters in the fifth dimension, he brought Yi Jiming to the netherworld. As for Dao Sanxing, he did not bring him along. If he brought this guy to the netherworld, something big would really happen. This guy hated the netherworld too much. If he went to the netherworld, he would definitely cause trouble. Moreover, the fifth dimension needed a super expert to guard it. Chapter 1301. In the vast starry sky, Yi Xian flew on his sword with Yi Jiming by his side. Yi Jiming looked at the distant starry sky, thinking about something. Yi Xian suddenly smiled. Jiming, you seem to be very familiar with the underworld. Yi Jiming glanced at Yi Xian and snorted, You want to know my true identity? Yi Xian nodded, I am indeed curious. Yi Jiming remained expressionless and did not speak. Seeing that Yi Jiming did not say anything, Yi Xian did not ask further and slowly closed his eyes. Calm down and focus. He estimated that with his current strength he should be able to fight a true Dao-proving expert head-on. Of course he did not have the confidence to win. Dao-confirming expert. He did not dare to underestimate such an expert. At this time Yi Jiming suddenly said, You have now integrated the fifth dimension, sixth dimension, godly kingdom of Shumi and Western paradise. In addition, you are willing to share the Dao scripture. In time, your strength will not be weaker than the underworld. Sharing the Dao scripture. It could be said that Yi Xian was currently using his own strength to increase the overall strength of the major forces. For Yi Xian, as long as he had a little more time, there would be many super experts appearing on his side. For people like Arrow and Zhou, once they reached the true release realm, they would definitely have the ability to fight against Dao-confirming experts. Yi Xian smiled, The underworld will not give me that much time. Yi Jiming nodded, whispering, Indeed. Yi Xian asked again, Jiming, is Sanxing really just a stone? Yi Jiming nodded, She is a stone but not an ordinary stone. She is called a Dao stone. Can be said that she is as special as the Dao scripture. Yi Xian asked, Do you know where she came from? Yi Jiming nodded, I know a little about Dao Yi. Yi Xian quickly asked, Can you tell me? Yi Jiming said indifferently, Ask her yourself. Yi Xian shook his head, She is not willing to say. Yi Jiming said, Then all the more I can't say. Yi Xian was speechless. As he spoke, Yi Xian suddenly realized that his surroundings had begun to change. Yi Jiming said, We're here. As she spoke, she and Yi Xian had already entered a wasteland. At the end of the wasteland it was pitch black. Yi Xian looked at the pitch black land. Is that the underworld over there? Yi Jiming nodded with a solemn look in his eyes. Yes, as long as the people of the Yang realm step into that place, their bodies will be corroded. Yi Xian nodded his head. He brought Yi Xian to the pitch black land, and before them, Yi Xian discovered a red line imprinted on the ground, stretching to both sides without an end. To the left of the red line was the world of the living, and to the right was the world of the dead. Yi Jiming pointed at the line, This is the Dao realm. It was placed here by an almighty to separate the underworld from the Yang realm. As she said this, she suddenly glared at Yi Xian. Don't ask me who that almighty is. I don't know. Yi Xian, Yi Jiming looked at the Dao realm. Actually, a long time ago this barrier was extremely powerful, so powerful that even Dao validation experts didn't dare to approach it. But now, its power is far from what it used to be. As she said this, there was a trace of complexity in her eyes. Great Dao. In fact, many great Daos in the world had been reversed, and the various orders of heaven and earth had been in chaos a long time ago. The current order was completely different from the past. Yi Xian suddenly said, If we want to go over, we have to deal with the Dao realm first? Yi Jiming nodded, We can't let its Dao law force your body. This way, after you enter the Yang realm, your body won't be corroded. Of course, even without the Dao law, your body might not be corroded. She didn't forget that Yi Xian had the death realm. Yi Xian quickly said, Then shall we go in? Yi Jiming expressionlessly said, You go. Yi Xian blinked his eyes, Is there any problem? Yi Jiming said, If you dare to cross this line, the Tao law contained in the Tao realm will attack you. You might be able to withstand it now, but in this way, it will cause a huge commotion and be discovered by the Yang realm. Yi Xian said solemnly, in other words, we can only sneak over? Yi Jiming nodded, yes. Yi Xian smiled, Jiming, do you have a way? Yi Jiming said after a moment of silence, you can try using your sword domain. Sword domain. Yi Xian nodded. He walked to the Tao realm and displayed his sword domain. When the sword domain enveloped the Tao realm, his face instantly turned pale. He quickly retracted the sword domain and looked at Yi Jiming. This? Yi Jiming said solemnly, no, your sword domain can't withstand the power of the Tao realm. Yi Xian frowned, then what should I do? Yi Jiming looked at the Tao realm for a long time, then said, you can try communicating with it. Yi Xian blinked, you mean it has a spirit? Yi Jiming nodded, yes. But I think it might ignore you. Yi Xian was puzzled, why? Yi Jiming said indifferently, you're not strong enough. Yi Xian's lips curled, I have a way. Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian and saw Yi Xian taking out a sword, the sword of the azure-robed man. The sword spirit. Yi Xian walked over to the Tao realm with the sword spirit in his hand, and then he lightly tapped the Tao realm with the sword. Bang! A powerful force suddenly shook Yi Xian to the point he was pushed back repeatedly. Yi Xian glanced at the sword after he stopped, and he was slightly puzzled. Is the azure-robed man's reputation useless? Suddenly, the Tao realm trembled slightly, and then a ray of red light floated out from within it. A little girl suddenly appeared within the red light. The little girl was around 15 or 16 years old, and she was slightly taller than Yi Jiming. She wore a red dress and her features were picturesque. Even though she was young, she was devastatingly beautiful. The spirit of the Tao realm. Yi Jiming glanced at Yi Xian. This fellow actually managed to get the spirit of the Tao realm out. He was AF * king genius. The little girl stared fixedly at Yi Xian. You're not the owner of this sword. Yi Xian nodded, yes. The little girl suddenly took a step forward, and she instantly appeared in front of Yi Xian. She just stared at Yi Xian. Where's the owner of this sword? Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. He's not here. The little girl flared up with rage. He's not here. Are you kidding me? As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly smashed her fist forward. Yi Xian's expression changed drastically, and he raised his sword to block. Bang! Yi Xian instantly retreated thousands of feet away. As soon as he stopped, the flesh in front of his chest directly split open, and a powerful force crazily destroyed his flesh. Yi Xian was shocked, and he hurriedly activated the sword domain to suppress that mysterious force. Meanwhile, the little girl appeared in front of him again, and she was just about to attack when Yi Xian hurriedly said, I'll call him out to beat you up if you attack again. The little girl just stared at Yi Xian and didn't speak. Suddenly, the little girl said, Who's behind you? Yi Xian instinctively turned his head, but the back of his head was completely empty. Yi Xian's expression instantly changed drastically when he witnessed this scene, and he cried out in his heart, shit. He hurriedly turned around. Meanwhile, the little girl's fist smashed against his stomach. Bang! Yi Xian instantly flew over 3 kilometers away. At this moment, the space he passed through collapsed layer by layer, and the space in an area of 3 kilometers in front of the little girl was instantly transformed into nothingness. After Yi Xian stopped moving, he spat out a few mouthfuls of blood essence in succession. Moreover, his body was in a horrible state. It had cracked like a spider web, and it seemed like his body would fall apart at any moment. Yi Xian wiped off the blood on the corners of his mouth, and then he gazed at the little girl and spoke furiously, You played dirty. Damn it. He'd really never imagined that this fellow would play dirty. This little girl possesses such terrifying strength, so how could he have imagined that she would play dirty? Where's the demeanor of an expert? The little girl clapped her hands and then she glanced coldly at Yi Xian. It's one thing for the underworld to be restless. Your world of the living is starting to be restless as well. It's so annoying. With that, she was about to attack again. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly pressed his palms together, and in an instant, a destructive force suddenly gathered within his body. Yi Jiming's eyelids twitched at the sight of this. Tao Scripture Martial Arts. Just then the little girl stopped and she looked at Yi Xian with a slight frown. What move is that? It looks like it's quite powerful. Yi Xian stared at the little girl. It's a martial art I created myself. Do you want to give it a try? Self-created. The corners of Yi Jiming's mouth twitched. My God, how dare he say that? Self-created. He's really too shameless. The little girl looked at Yi Xian. You created it yourself? Yixian nodded, yes. The little girl thought for a moment and then she said, don't use that move for now. We can talk about it. Yixian. The little girl glanced at the sword in Yixian's hand and then she said, can you tell me where the owner of this sword is? Yixian spoke in a low voice, in a very distant place. The little girl asked again, are you very familiar with him? Yixian thought for a moment and then he said, he's my big brother. Yi Jiming. The little girl frowned slightly, then why is he so strong and you so weak? The corners of Yixian's mouth twitched, am I weak? The little girl looked at Yixian, aren't you? Yixian spoke indifferently, just tell me what you want. The little girl thought for a moment and then she said, how about this, help me call the owner of this sword over, and then ask him to do me a favor. Yixian laughed coldly, why should I? The little girl looked at Yixian and she didn't say anything, but her hands were clenched tightly without her knowing. Yixian wasn't afraid and he formed a seal with both hands, and the power emanating from his body grew stronger and stronger. A battle was about to break out. Yixian suddenly said, what do you want him to help you with? The little girl said indifferently, help me cut off something from my body. Yixian asked, what is it? The little girl looked at Yixian and she was a little displeased, why are you asking so many questions? Yixian thought for a moment and then he said, why don't we make a deal? The little girl frowned slightly, a deal? Yixian nodded, I'll help you find that swordsman, what do you think? The little girl looked at Yixian, what do you want? Yixian said seriously, I don't want anything. The little girl frowned slightly, what do you mean? Yixian said seriously, to be able to help the legendary Great Tao is my Yixian's honor, how can I ask for anything else? No, I don't want anything in return really. The corner of Yi Jiming's mouth twitched, the little girl looked at Yixian and the hostility in her eyes suddenly lessened, you're more pleasing to the eye than those guys from the underworld. As she said that, she flicked her finger and a white jade bottle fell in front of Yixian. Heal your injuries first. Yi Jiming. Chapter 1302. Yixian took the white jade bottle. There was a white elixir in it. The elixir was smooth and round, and it gave off a refreshing medicinal fragrance. He didn't suspect anything and swallowed it. The other party might have a chance to kill him, but it was impossible for them to poison him. As soon as the pill entered his body, a surge of pure energy quickly spread throughout his body, then into his limbs and bones. Yixian's body trembled. So comfortable. It was a strange feeling. Yi Jiming glanced at Yixian. She realized that not only was this guy thick-skinned, he was also good at flattery. She had to be more careful in the future or else it would be easy to fall into his trap. Not long later, Yixian's body returned to normal. At this time, the young lady suddenly asked, you want to go to the nether world? Yixian nodded, Senior, to be honest, we are going to the nether world, but I'm a little weak. The young lady sized up Yixian, you're not weak. Yixian smiled bitterly, I couldn't even take 2 moves from Senior. The young lady said calmly, even in the nether world, not many can take 2 moves from me. You're already very good. Yixian thought for a moment, then said solemnly, then it's not that I'm too weak, but Senior is too strong. Yi Jiming. The young lady nodded, that makes sense. Saying so, she glanced at Yixian. It said that humans are cunning, but it doesn't seem so. There are still a few honest humans among them. Yi Jiming shook her head as she listened. She suddenly realized a problem. It wasn't without reason that Yixian could reach where he was today. Thick-skinned, good at flattery, good at changing the direction of the wind. Most importantly, this guy was a swordsman. Swordsman was all about facing one's heart, but this guy never went against his heart. Not only that, his sword Tao was getting stronger and stronger. He was a weirdo. A super weirdo in the world of swordsmen. Not far away, the little girl said again, tell me about the swordsman. Yixian nodded. He is my master. Master. The girl sized up Yixian and nodded. Your attainments in the sword Tao aren't bad either. It's rare for you to form your own Tao. Yixian was a little excited. To be able to obtain Senior's recognition, Junior is overwhelmed by the favor. If I can get Senior's guidance? Give pointers. The little girl thought about it and felt a little awkward. Actually, she wasn't skilled in the sword Tao, but if she didn't give him some pointers at this time, wouldn't she lose face? The little girl thought for a moment before she said, your sword Tao has formed a Tao of its own. If you want to break through once more, then you must prove your Tao with the sword. Proving the way with the sword. Yixian blinked. How do I prove my Tao with the sword? The little girl opened her palm, and Yi Xian's sword appeared in her hand. She held the sword and swung it lightly. In an instant, the space around Yi Xian was suddenly locked down by a blood-red line. The little girl looked at Yi Xian. "Try walking out." Yi Xian nodded. He took a step forward, but his body started rotting as soon as he stepped out of the red line. Yi Xian was shocked and he hurriedly retreated. He looked at the little girl. "Senior, what's this?" The little girl pointed with her fingers, and the sword in her hand landed firmly in front of Yi Xian. "This is my Dao, the Dao realm. I am the source of all barriers. If I want to, I can easily seal off this universe." Yi Xian fell silent. Seal off the entire universe. This little girl is even more terrifying than I've imagined. The little girl continued, "Your sword Dao contains variables, but you haven't proven your Dao. No matter how the variables in the world change, they're still the same. You must truly grasp the rules of the Dao of change, and then prove your Dao with the sword so that your sword can become truly unique." Yi Xian sought guidance humbly. "Prove the Dao with the sword? Is it the Dao with the sword or the Dao with the person?" The little girl blinked. "Is there a difference?" Yi Xian was stunned, and then he smiled and said, "I understand." There was no difference, because he'd already cultivated to the point of becoming one with the sword. The sword was him, Yi Xian, and Yi Xian was the sword. So he could prove his Dao with the sword. The little girl nodded slightly. "It's good that you understand." Yi Xian looked at the little girl and said seriously, "Listening to Senior today is better than studying for 10 years. I've learned a lot." After a moment of silence, the little girl asked, "Are you really unable to contact your master?" Yi Xian nodded and smiled bitterly. "He's gone to a very far place." The little girl fell silent. Yi Xian suddenly said, "Senior, how about this? Once I know Master's whereabouts, I'll immediately inform him and get him to help Senior." The little girl looked at Yi Xian. "Will he help me?" Yi Xian said seriously, "If Master knows that Senior gave me pointers earlier, Master will definitely be grateful. Senior, rest assured. As long as he appears, I'll definitely get him to help Senior to repay Senior for your guidance today." The little girl nodded. "That's the only way." Yi Xian suddenly said, "How should I address Senior?" The little girl said, "Mu Sheng." "Mu Sheng." Yi Xian nodded. "Miss Mu Sheng?" He hesitated for a moment and said, "You don't mind if I address you like that, right? Because I feel that you're very young and beautiful. It's not appropriate to call you Senior." Yi Jiming was speechless. The little girl said, "It's just a form of address. You can call me whatever you want." Yi Xian nodded. "All right, Mu Sheng." "Mu Sheng." The little girl was speechless. Yi Jiming was speechless. Yi Xian suddenly pointed at the nether realm in the distance. "Mu Sheng, according to what I know, the nether realm can't come to the yang realm." But earlier, Mu Sheng's eyes suddenly turned icy cold. It was like 10,000-year-old ice, and it made one shudder. "Those bastards." Yi Xian glanced at Mu Sheng curiously. "What did they do?" Mu Sheng's face was expressionless. "Some of them forcefully held me back, and then some bastards from the nether realm escaped while I was off guard." Yi Xian was furious. "They actually did something like that?" Mu Sheng glanced at the nether realm with an icy cold gaze. "Those fellows have been very restless lately." Yi Xian suddenly said, "Mu Sheng, I want to make a trip to the nether realm." Mu Sheng frowned. "You want to go to the nether realm?" Yi Xian nodded. Mu Sheng shook his head. "You're not strong enough. It'll be dangerous if you go there." Yi Xian said, "It's fine. I'll be careful." Mu Sheng looked at Yi Xian. "Why are you going there?" Yi Xian said in a deep voice. "To be honest, we want to go there to find some treasures." Mu Sheng was silent for a moment. "Are you sure you want to go there?" Yi Xian nodded. Mu Sheng said, "Then do me a favor." Yi Xian asked, "What favor?" Mu Sheng said, "I have 2 friends in the nether realm. They're called Manju and Xiahua. But for some reason they're trapped in the nether realm. Can you help me get them out?" "No." At that moment, Yi Jiming suddenly spoke up from not far away. Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming in surprise. "What's wrong, Jiming?" Yi Jiming ignored Yi Xian. She looked at Mu Sheng with a cold expression. "He might be a little crafty, but he has no intention of harming you. Why do you want to harm him?" Yi Xian looked at Mu Sheng. It seemed that things weren't as simple as they seemed. Mu Sheng looked at Yi Jiming. "If you want to go to the nether realm, I can help you. Also, I have no intention of harming him. He might be tainted by karma if he helps me, but please, his master is so powerful. What's there to be afraid of?" Yi Xian's mouth twitched. "It's over. This misunderstanding is too big. Mu Sheng really thinks that the green-robed man is his master. Yi Jiming turned to Yi Xian. Don't agree to this. Yi Xian was confused. What? Yi Jiming said in a low voice. Her two friends are actually the evil creatures of the Nether Realm, the red spider lilies. Not to mention you, even those from the Nether Realm wouldn't dare to provoke them. Yi Xian said, Is there any evil cause of disaster? Yi Jiming was speechless. Yi Xian looked at Mu Sheng and smiled. Senior, I agree to your request. However, I need you to help me with something. Mu Sheng looked at Yi Xian. I wanted to go by myself, but I can't leave this place. Once I leave, the balance between the Nether Realm and the Yang Realm will be lost. At that time, the Nether Realm will seize the opportunity to wreak havoc. Of course, you're an honest man, so I don't want to trick you. It's dangerous for you to do this, especially when you might be tainted by karma. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. Senior, to tell you the truth, I don't want to go as well. However, Senior has provided me with some guidance. I, Yi Xian, am a grateful person. Since Senior needs me, then I, Yi Xian, will do it even if I have to climb a mountain of blades or dive into a sea of flames. Mu Sheng hesitated for a moment when she heard this, and then she said, You're too kind. At this moment, a trace of guilt had arisen in her heart. Yi Jiming was speechless. Mu Sheng suddenly sighed softly. It really isn't nice to let you go just like that. As soon as she finished speaking, she withdrew a palm-sized rock and passed it to Yi Xian. This is a world stone and it contains my energy. You can activate it at the critical moment and it will form a barrier. Even if it's the Lord of the Nether Realm, you'll be able to trap him for a period of time. Yi Xian hurriedly put the world stone away and said, Thank you. Mu Sheng suddenly pressed her fingers together and pointed forward. Two rays of black light shot into Yi Xian and Yi Jiming's bodies, and then their bodies actually vanished without a trace. Their bodies were still there, but they couldn't be seen with the naked eye. Mu Sheng said, I've already concealed the energy within your bodies. In this way you won't be noticed once you head to the Nether Realm. However, you still have to be careful. Yi Xian nodded. Mu Sheng will be taking our leave. Mu Sheng nodded. If it's impossible, then there's no need to force it. Yi Xian smiled. He pulled Yi Jiming, who had an extremely unsightly expression on his face, and left. However, he'd only taken a few steps when he suddenly stopped and turned around to look at Mu Sheng. Mu Sheng, I can't guarantee that I'll be able to rescue your friends, but I'll do my best. When he spoke up to this point, he suddenly sent a voice transmission to Mu Sheng. Mu Sheng gazed at Yi Xian. A short while later she nodded. All right. Yi Xian grinned, and then he pulled Yi Jiming along as they vanished into the distance. Mu Sheng gazed towards the Nether Realm, and no one knew what she was thinking. They'd made a small deal. In the distance, Yi Jiming remained silent, his expression cold. Yi Xian smiled. Don't be angry. Yi Jiming sneered. Why should I be angry? It's not like I'm the unlucky one. Yi Xian chuckled. Without Mu Sheng's help, we won't be able to enter. Yi Jiming took a deep breath. She looked at Yi Xian. Do you think you've made a profit? Do you know what red spider lily is? It's the most evil thing in the Nether Realm, the red spider lily. It's also known as the forbidden flower. Most importantly, it carries great karma. Yi Xian frowned. A flower? Yi Jiming shook her head. That's no ordinary flower. Saying so, she sighed. The red spider lily blooms for 10,000 years and wilts for 10,000 years. Its petals and leaves will never meet. Love is not karma, but fate determines life and death. Yi Xian frowned. Aren't red spider and Xiahua women? Well, Yi Jiming remained expressionless. Can't two women fall in love? Yi Xian. Yi Jiming continued. Buddha said that the opposite sex is only for reproduction, while the same sex is true love. Yi Xian was dumbfounded. P.S. Those with a guaranteed monthly ticket can vote for it. Recently, I've been seeing a reader's comment section. His name is Chill of Autumn and Winter, and every chapter has a comment. The old man calculated with his fingers. You don't want to be gay. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.